Not Ghetto Froggy being a suspect. No. Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is time for more Gale Saiyan. But yes, we are continuing. We have started chapter 8. How exciting. Or 2, whatever that means. Bonner arrived at Phrygia 30 minutes after the time Momose asked him to be there. Bon, you're late. Momose yelled at him as soon as he arrived. Bon shrugged and gave her a half-hearted smile as he walked over to her desk. He hadn't brought her any sweets today. A decision he was beginning to regret. No, where's Yua? Not working on his own today. So you're slacking off while the kid does all the work, huh? No, I'm working too, you know. I was up all night doing research, I'll have you know. I've learned a whole lot about what teenage girls are up to these days. Uh-huh. I'm not even sure what to say to that. So, if I'm here, that means you managed to make contact with the kid. They're here now. That's my Momo. Is she cute? Mimosa gave the grinning Bon a slap on the head. She put her wrist into it too, and it hurt pretty bad. Good, he deserves it. Grow up, you old pervert. It was a joke, okay? Bon had to ask Momose for a favor. He'd wanted to talk to somebody involved in the new gen cases directly, and had asked Phrygia to make it happen. His questions were, for the moment, not going to be directly linked to the police investigation. He couldn't talk to her in an official capacity, at least without somehow getting the rest of the team involved. Momose headed for a corner of the office, motioning for Bon to follow her. There was a small space there, surrounded by shelves lined with files. This space served as a meeting room for talking with clients. There were 2 sofas, each with room for 2 people, and both far too big for the cramped little area. When Bon followed Momose inside, he saw a girl sitting there. She was wearing a Suimei Academy uniform. Her shoulders were slumped, and she was looking down. She looked exhausted. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Of course it's Yua. The girl looked up in surprise as Momose spoke. Her glasses slid on her nose a little, forcing her to push them back into place with her fingers. The screen for my stream was frozen. You had to refresh the page. Rip. No. I'm fine. She looked a little scared as she bowed shallowly to Bon. He was kind of hurt by this. Bon always tried his hardest to try and come off as unthreatening. Okay, cop. He realized, though, that he must still be giving off the intimidating air of a professional police officer, though. Yeah. It's something he would have had to keep working on, he realized. You are Kusunoki, correct? Yes. You're the twin sister of Mia, the deceased. Is that right? Oh. Interesting. Yua flinched a little before nodding. The first new gen case was the group dive. One of the victims who jumped was a girl named Mia Kusunoki. Ah. Come on now, calm down a little. I'm not here to interrogate you. We're just having a little chat. X'd it out. Before I get to the point, can I ask you something? What are your thoughts about your sister's death? Bon, you can't possibly expect her to. Sorry. It's just part of my job. Tact is one of the first things you lose as a police officer. I'm just curious. The task force down at the station was talking about it too. They said Mia Kusunoki's family was unusual. Ban! No, it's fine. Momose had almost leapt out of her chair at Bon's rude question, but Yua herself stopped her. I think it's strange myself. And the 5 kids who died in the group dive had absolutely no reason to commit suicide. Their family and friends all said the same thing. But Mia's family was the sole exception. Bon took his fan out of his belt and began to wave it at his face. They didn't say anything. It didn't make any kind of fuss. And they were so quiet about it that it was strange, everyone said. Why do you think that was the case? Ever since Mia died, Mom and Dad have been weird. There was pain in her voice. At first, on the day they heard Mia had died, they cried. Mom and Dad looked like they were in a lot of pain. But the next morning, for some reason, they were happy and smiling. They were exactly back to how they'd been before Mia died. It only took a single day. I didn't understand. I thought that maybe the two of them were just trying to forget her. And then Dad was smiling, and he said, I don't even have a sister. When I showed them her clothes and shoes, it didn't faze them at all. And they said they were all just the extras they'd bought for me. And then they started turning off the news and ignoring the police. Damn. They're trying to forget that Mia ever existed. And so you're going to pretend you weren't twins? And that's why they started chasing off the police and telling them that they only had one daughter. Mia and I were identical twins. We were impossible to tell apart. But my parents hated her. Well then. She would always hide away her own feelings and put me first. As Yua talked, she remembered her old life. For example, one year when she was in elementary school, her parents had bought a present, a single giant stuffed bear. Yua was excited, but Mia said she didn't like stuffed animals and ignored it. Her parents had disliked how Mia refused to act like a little child should. Still, Yua had quietly offered to share the stuffed animal with her, but Mia had refused. I don't need a stuffed animal, you can have it, was all she said. A month or so later, though, when Yua had gotten tired of the stuffed animal, she'd woken late at night to see something surprising. Mia was holding the stuffed bear and talking to it, with such a happy look on her face. Yua had never seen her sister look so happy. It was only then that Yua realized her sister was lying about not wanting the bear. She'd been lying so that her sister could have it all to herself. The next day, Yua looked under Mia's pillow and found a cute picture of a bear she'd drawn. Mia had been sleeping with it in her arms until Yua got tired of the stuffed animal. Things like that had happened over and over again for the past 18 years. It was always Yua who blew out the candles on the birthday cake. Mia would say, "That's stupid, I'm not doing it." Her parents would get angry. Yua had made it into Suime Academy, a private school, but Mia had deliberately behaved badly in class, lowering her grades and making sure she got sent to a public one. Her parents hadn't had the money to send both of them to private schools. No matter what Yua tried to do for Mia, Mia would always put her sister first. even if it meant making other people hate her. In the end, I took advantage of Mia's kindness and had all the fun while she suffered. Only after she was gone did I realize there was more I could have done for her, and I really regret it. I wish I could have died in her place. And then, not only that, her parents are trying to forget about her. It's not fair. It's just too sad. That was all the talking she could do. She took off her glasses and put her hands over her eyes as she began to cry. Momose sat next to her, kindly patting her on the back. So Yu has been investigating the case on her own, she says. To find out what exactly happened to her, Mia. That must have been difficult. She's found a name. Momose looked over to Bone, still holding Yua close. Takumi Nishijo. I see. Bone stroked the stubble on his chin and leaned forward. I heard from one of the local detectives that there was a teenage girl who was running after Nishijo one day. Was that you? She nodded at him apologetically. Interesting. I like to hear. I was gonna say I'd like to hear more, but give me a second. Bon chuckled and bobbed his head at Yua and Momose. He'd been cut off by the sound of his phone ringing from within his suit pocket. He quickly took it out and looked at the LCD screen. It was showing Siwa's name. Hello? What is it? It's happened. The 7th murder. What? Siwa's voice was tense. Bob could hear the sound of the other police officers frantically running around him. From the sound of it, Siwa was at the station. In the 7th New Gen case. Bon's eyes went wide, and then he bit his lip bitterly. Momose and Yua could tell by his demeanor that something had happened, and were looking at him, worried. 3 victims, all friends. All of them had their bodies torn in half. Oof. Their top and bottom halves were stitched with one another, and sewn together with a monofilament fishing wire, basically. Interesting. And there are injuries to their faces that look like the letters Q, D, and N. Some kind of message. It's too early to say. There's something else too. The autopsy found something. The bodies weren't cut in half with a saw or knife, or anything with a blade. What do you mean? The coroner says they were ripped apart by some kind of incredible force. Eek. Ripped apart? Bon repeated that to himself as he scratched his head, roughly with the hilt of the fan. Like by some kind of giant monster. Or maybe one of those mages that everybody seems to be talking about these days. Are you serious? I'm a big movie buff, but even I can get behind what you on that one. It's called an example, you idiot. Now, get back to work. He hung up the phone. And the sun started setting earlier once November came. Yeah, that's right. Accurate. It is officially November. God damn it. By the time I was ready to go home with Rimi after class, a pale orange color was settling over the sky. I'm sorry. Rimi had been silent until then, but suddenly she apologized. You had a really rough time, right, Taku? It was the first time in a while we'd gone home together. I was so happy she'd come back. She offered to go home with me today again, for one thing. We'd only gone home together twice now, so I was afraid she might want to stop, but that didn't happen. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you. Somebody I knew got hurt in that earthquake, and I was taking care of them. Remy brought up the subject, even though I hadn't asked. Okay. But to be honest, I wasn't even hearing most of what she was saying. Attentive. And the bandage I'd seen on Nanami's wrist at lunch, I couldn't get out of my mind. Are you mad? I missed my chance to talk to her then. Well, no, I'd gotten scared. Nanami was my little sister. I was her big brother. But something felt so strange. The nurse had said Nanami wasn't hurt. The hand that Shogun had sent me had disappeared from the fridge in the base. It was all supposed to be a delusion. So why would she have a bandage around her right hand? Maybe I was just overthinking things and she'd gotten burned or had a nasty bug bite. That had to be it. Right? That was the most sensible answer, right? But I was still afraid of finding out. I had been able to help her, but here I was, too gloomy to even talk to her. I was a really awful big brother. Hey, Taku. Hello. Hello. If you're mad, then say so. Being ignored kind of hurts. Huh? I looked at Remy. She was sad. Huh? Were you not listening to me? I hesitated a moment before nodding. She poked a finger into my cheek and pushed. Good. Snap. I thought you were ignoring me. Don't confuse me like that. Ow, her nail. Her nail was digging into my skin. You okay? Remy whispered, finally pulling back her hand. Yeah, that was always what she said when she was worried about me. You've been kind of pale since lunchtime. You seem kind of down today. Was somebody mean to you? If so, tell me. I'll go get mad at them. She was like a big sister, or my mom. Yumi could be pretty nosy, I can read. Well, she'd have to be, if she could care about a weird loser like me. I appreciated the fact that she was worried about me, until now. Whenever I had had a problem, the only options were to keep it to myself or write an anonymous post on the @chan. Maybe I should ask her about Nanami. But when I asked her about the D-sword, she hadn't believed me at all. She'd reacted like any sensible person would. If I told her, she'd either laugh it off or be freaked out. If that was the case, it'd be a waste of time to try. All I needed from Mimi was for her to be by my side. I could ask Kozupi or Senna for help with this problem instead. This place is as filthy as ever, huh? Mimi whispered in exasperation as she stepped inside the base. But despite her complaints, she seemed happy, so I couldn't tell what she was really thinking. This place hasn't changed at all. The only one I know who keeps the room this messy. If it's that bad, then you clean it. I decided to turn on my computer. Hey, are you turning on your computer the minute you walk in the door? You got a friend over. Why don't you offer her something to drink or something? Come on, let's chat. Remy asked me for the impossible as she sat down on my sofa. If I tried to have a one-on-one chat with a 3D girl, I'd run out of things to discuss almost instantly. Lately, I had more chances to talk to Remy, and I'd started to get used to talking to her, but I still wouldn't last even 5 minutes. And right now, my head was full of thoughts of Nanami, and I didn't feel up to having a cheerful conversation. I'm sure it would look like I was ignoring her. I sat down in my chair feeling like a pathetic loser. I see how it is. If that's how you're going to be, then I'm going home. Have fun without me. I could hear Rimi standing up. I turned around in surprise, and she was heading towards the door. Hey. I tried to tell her to stop, but I was in such a panic I couldn't get the words out. Suddenly, she stopped and turned her head to look back at me. Hey, you worried about your sister? Huh? How did you know? I hadn't said a word about Nanami to her. You're mumbling something about her. Hey, who's more important? Your sister or me? That was the worst question imaginable. You know how it is. There are mean girls out there who like to ask questions they know you can't answer. They only care about themselves. They don't care about you at all. I never thought I'd actually hear those words spoken in real life, though. This was the ugly part of 3D girls. In the end, Rimi was just another one of them. To be honest, I was disappointed. I felt stupid for even trying to open up to her. I should have known that 3D could never beat 2D. I decided to just stop hanging out with her altogether. All of my interest in her instantly faded, and I let out an annoyed sigh. I wasn't going to stop her from leaving. In fact, I wanted her to go right now. But then, Rimi did something unexpected. Answer me. Who's more important? Your sister or me? She took what looked like a paring knife out of her bag and put it up to her wrist. I was stunned and terrified. Choose me. I want you to look at me and nobody else. Pairing me. Was that supposed to be a threat? Was this who she really was? Was she actually insane? Please. Look at me. But you don't only look at me. I made the mistake of giving her a serious response. You're supposed to just ignore crazy girl threats. I regretted it, but it was too late. I do. Her voice was horribly cold. Her eyes were bloodshot. There was a mocking smile on her lips. And that's why I have to get rid of any potential rivals. I'm the one who kidnapped your sister. You're lying. I'll do anything to make you choose me. Even this. And then, Rimi took the knife that was pressed up against her wrist and slowly began to draw it across her skin. Stop. Huh? Stop what? Suddenly, I was staring at my computer monitor again. I could hear Rimi behind me. She sounded confused. Fair. I quickly turned around and saw she was sitting on the sofa. She had a manga in her hand and was looking at me, stunned. Taku? What's wrong? You look pale. Oh, nothing. Oh, it was just a delusion. That one scared me. You've got mail, dork. Wow. What was that?
Yeah.
No, Grimija has just heard my say it on email voice. That was really embarrassing. I opened my email program and saw 3 messages from Grim telling me to get my ass in the chat room. I always thought I hadn't chatted with Grim in a while. We used to talk all the time. But since I've been staying off ESO, we hadn't talked for 10 days. About 10 days, rather. Hey. Hey, and I heard. I've been waiting. We got new nice guy. I can read. We got what? Too lazy to find AA. New gen, dude. New gen. New gen equals nice guy. New gen NG nice guy. Should be that hard to figure out, right? Anyways, it's here. The 7th murder.
どうしたの?
What's wrong? Mary must have noticed my surprise, because she stood up and came over next to me. She appeared at the monitor from over my shoulder.
第7の事件。
The 7th murder. Another one. Another new gen murder. How long has this been... Blah, 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 blah. How long was this going to keep happening? Will the next one be the one where they finally got me? Or the one after that?
タク、
Taku,
気にすること
you
な
don't
い
need to
よ。
worry about it.
何も怖いことなんてない。
There's nothing to be afraid of.
タクは狙われたり
They're
な
not
んてし
after
ない
you, Taku.
全部タクの
Everything
被
you're
害
feeling
妄
is
想。
just a paranoid delusion, okay? She was trying to cheer me up, but she had no evidence at all. Wasn't gonna make me feel better, maybe. Anyway, had Grim gotten a job at the new gen advertising division or something? He was constantly telling me about them whenever one happened. That's good. He posted a bunch of links to news sites. This must have been his way of telling me to look at them. I'll click the link and bit down hard on my lip. Seventh new gen case. DQN puzzle. At 4:50 a.m. on the 4th, the bodies of 3 men were found hanging from a transmission tower along the train tracks of Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. The bodies belonged to 3 Shibuya residents, a college student named Saburo Anzawa, a part-time worker named Ro Takagi, and Kohei Fujita, who was unemployed. A police investigation revealed that the bodies of all 3 had been severed at the waist, and that the cut did not appear to have been made cleanly as if by a blade. The lower and upper halves of the deceased were each attached to different bodies, sewn together with sturdy thread. The letters D, Q, and N were found on their foreheads, which the police believe may be a message from the killer. Pictures of the crime scene were uploaded to @channel, a major internet message board before the media's reports, and is already being called the 7th in the so-called New Generation Madness cases. Users of the board have named the DQN puzzle due to the way the bodies of the victims were. DQ in Dokyun is a word used to refer to a thug or a person who lacks common sense. Some members of the families are preparing to take legal action against certain inappropriate commentaries by @channel users, and reaction online has been mixed. A new gen, Kitakore! Whose eyes are those? I got 3 corpses ripped apart at the waist, Dokyun written on their foreheads. Lol, Dokyun, lol. This is a new gen. The cops are idiots. You're trying to say that we Dokyun hating @channelers are behind it? The way to rip the bodies apart and put them back together is kind of like a puzzle. I wish they replaced my top half with that of a hot guy. Got that fake psychic Nishijo to tell you who's behind it. It's the New Generation Madness and I can't bear it. Group dive, pregnant man, crucified, vampire, or brain dead, yummy hat, and Dokyun puzzle. At approximately 4:50 a.m. today, a newspaper delivery man found the bodies of 3 men hanging from a utility tower near the train tracks in Shibuya. A police investigation revealed that the bodies belonged to 3 Shibuya residents, a college student named Saburo Anzawa, a part-time worker named Ro Takagi, and Kohei Fujita, who was unemployed. All 3 had their bodies severed at the torso, and the top and bottom halves were switched with another of the murdered men. Strange, distinctive injuries were found on their foreheads, which the police believe may be a message from the killer. Shibuya has suffered from a number of bizarre murders over the past 2 months, and authorities are treating this as another in the same series of incidents. The last video I saw showed the faces of the 3 murdered men. I recognized their faces. It's them.
知ってるの?
You know them?
昨日僕に
They
絡
mugged
んで
me
きた.
yesterday. I gave them my wallet, but they still attacked me anyway. I passed out, and when I woke up, Kozupi was there. The three of them were covered in blood. I took my wallet out of my pocket and stared at it. When I'd woken up, Kozupi was holding my wallet, and she'd given it back to me. Could she be the one who... No, that wasn't right. When I'd seen them last, their faces were smashed up and they were covered in blood, but they certainly weren't sliced in half. They'd been killed after Kozupi and I had left. It had to be Shogun. He was taunting me. He was trying to destroy my mind. I felt like I was about to throw up. My stomach was racked with pain. I put my hands up against it hard to try to make it go away. Would I be next? Would the next one finally be the one where I was killed? That's all for today. A hand reached out from behind me and flicked the switch on the monitor. The screen went black. Calm down. You don't need to worry about it. It's just a coincidence. I'm sure of it. I could really be so calm. There's no way this all could just be a coincidence. Anyway, I'm hungry. There's a place I'd like. Why don't we go get dinner there? It's nice and cheap, and the food is good too. I guarantee it. Though, it's mostly older guys in there. It's a little embarrassing for me to go by myself. No, and we have to go inside the station. It's inside the station building. There's one of the There's one on the clockwise side of the Yamanote line, and one on the counterclockwise side. But I think the one on the counterclockwise side is way better. Dinner, huh? I didn't feel like eating at all. It felt like there was a knife at my throat. Like somebody was saying they could kill me at any time. Please, just leave me alone. What did I ever do to you? I'm just so tired of all this all. I can read so good. Ayase Kishimoto was staring out the window, only half paying attention to anything going on around her. There were no bars at the windows like there were in the rooms at Arcart Medical, the place she'd been at before. Outside she could see the high-rise buildings of Shinjuku, and beyond them, a blazing evening sky. A few pigeons were flapping their wings furiously as they crossed the sky. Occasionally, she would wince in pain. Her eyes were empty, just a little tired. Her lips weren't humming the songs that had so entranced the young people of Shibuya. After her failed suicide attempt, she'd been brought to a big general hospital in Yoyogi. Her wounds had almost completely healed. The doctors had said it was a miracle that a fall from that height had ended in only a few minor scrapes and bruises. Still, she'd hit her head hard, so she's been hospitalized for observation. She's been here over a week already. Of course, observation meant nothing more than a simple checkup once every 2 days. The rest of the time she was left alone. She had the room to herself. There were no other beds in it. Her D-sword was up against the window. It was flashing with a pale light. It'd been there the whole time, but nobody had noticed it. She didn't get many visitors. Phantasm fans were, supposedly, coming in huge numbers every day, but the hospital had banned them from seeing her so they wouldn't bother the other patients. She and her family weren't close. Almost nobody else came to see her. Her bandmates had come to see her once. When she brought up breaking up the band, though, they stopped coming at all. I mean... Kishimoto, did your thermometer go beep? The door opened and a nurse in white came in. Yase slowly turned toward her, and then took the thermometer out from under her arm like she just remembered it was there. The nurse looked at the number on the digital display and wrote it down on the chart. 37.1 degrees Celsius. You got a mild fever, maybe. My head hurts. Yase winced in pain again. Oh my, another headache?
でもそれは薬の
It's a
副
side
作用
effect
よ
of the medicine,
気
though.
にしなくてもそ
Will
のうち良
eventually
くな
go
ります
away.
よ
The nurse smiled as she spoke and took the thermometer. Her expression was gentle, and there was something about her that put a patient at ease. But Ayase put her hand to her forehead and shook her head. Ever since she came here, Ayase had been dealing with a dull headache. Painful wasn't the word for it. But there's an unpleasant sensation of something pulsing in her head. It was making it hard for her to think. And her whole body felt as heavy as lead. This has happened to Ayase before too. It was when she was at Art Cart Medical. The headaches had lasted 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. She'd been unable to sleep and emotionally unstable. It was a past she didn't want to remember. A past she sealed away. Her memories of 2 years ago. The pain was the trigger that made them come back in flashes. I see. A dark room. A small window with bars. Except for that small window, the walls were entirely covered with mirrors. She'd been restrained in a steel chair in the center of the room. And there was some kind of device on her head, with cord scissors streaming off of it. Her hands were bound behind the chair's back. Her head was restrained and it was tilted up at a slight angle. There was no one else in the room. The only sounds were her panting for air and the straining of the metal chair. Drool flew from her lips. Drool flew from her lips, I can read. And a bestial howl came from her throat that one would have thought impossible for a girl her age. Kill me. Kill me! It was a very quiet form of torture. There's only one thing good they were doing to her. A single drop of water was falling on her forehead from above, and the same odd every time, at exactly 5-second intervals. That was all. She'd been stuck like that for 2 days with no rest. And now all she could think of is when the next drop would fall. Her senses were pushed to their limits. Each time a drop fell, it felt like every nerve in her body was being ripped apart. Like all the bones in her body were being shattered. Like a long, sharp awl was being driven into her skull. Like all the fluids in her body, blood included, were freezing. Like all of her skin was rotting and slowing off. I feel like I butchered that word there, but it was more than enough to drive her mad. Sloughing? Sloughing off? Is that how you read that? Okay. English is special. That's what happens when you mix a bunch of different languages together and fuck up all the rules of pronunciation, I guess, but sloughing, huh? She snapped back to reality and found herself panting and clutching the sheets tightly. Her whole body had started to shake when her dark memories came back. The nurse was gone from her room. It was dinner time, and there was a frantic rush of movement outside the doors. Yasi repeated the words that the nurse had said to herself. Was this headache really caused by the medicine? Or had she hit her head when she had fallen? Was it an effect of her old memories? She couldn't tell. Yase wiped away the sweat on her forehead and began to laugh. I don't care. I don't care what you did to me now. I survived divine punishment. I know exactly what I have to do. she whispered, as if in a trance. Then, suddenly, she heard a sound coming from the hallway. It was the pleasant sound of shoes on linoleum. They weren't the nurse's shoes, she could tell that much. The footsteps were getting closer to her room. There was a knock at the door. She pressed her lips together tightly into a frown. Hello there. It was a man. He was holding a fruit basket, the type commonly given as gifts. Yase recognized the man. Thus, she looked at him suspiciously. Hey there. Oh, don't worry. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm...
知ってるわ。
I know. He was a detective with the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. He'd once been tailing her as a person of interest in the new Gen case. He scratched his head cheerfully. For a detective, he seemed surprisingly laid back. Oh, that makes me happy to have a pretty girl like you remember me, I mean. She's in high school, buddy. And you got a good memory. The detective walked toward her bed. Yase glanced at the east of the windowsill. It was too far away for her to reach and grab. And I was thinking you might want some company, so I brought you this fruit basket. You know, company, fruit basket. What more do you want to life? Who wouldn't want to be accompanied by a basket of fruit?
そうは思えないわ。
I don't think that's true.
目的は
What do you want? You're pretty sharp, huh? The detective acted like he was shaken, but it felt like a little... It felt a little like an act. Word order. Well, I guess there's something I want to ask you. Oh, here. This is for you. He offered her the fruit basket with an innocent smile, practically forcing her to take it by placing it at the foot of her bed. It's really good fruit. Also, it was really expensive.
いらない。
No thanks. Oh, come on, don't say that. How nice about the money on it. When your mom comes later, you can share it with her or something. Oh, whoops. You haven't seen your parents for years, have you? It was clear the detective knew exactly what he was doing, but he also didn't really care. Her parents had disowned her when she was very little. Oof. They were the type to really care about what the neighbors thought of them, and Ayase was a problem child that they were eager to be rid of. She was entirely cut off from them, though. They sent her enough money to cover her living expenses every month. Fair enough, I guess. Sorry. He gave her a little bob of his head in apology. Ayase was only now starting to recover from her flashback earlier, and didn't really want to talk to the detective at all. She decided to get this over with as fast as possible.
聞きたいことって
What did you want to ask me about?
アリバイ
My alibi? Nah, we already talked to you about that more than enough. You're not under suspicion anymore. You're innocent. Completely innocent.
目星はついたの
Do you have a suspect then?
犯人の
For the murders? I can't tell you that. Classified information, you see.
匠
Takumi. It's a secret. The detective was grinning. He was clearly hiding something. When he left, he could really see just how young he was. Nishijo's certainly a strange boy, though. He certainly doesn't look like a murderer, you know? If he really is the killer, then he's a demon wearing a human skin.
まだ容疑者なの
He's still a suspect, isn't he? No, that's actually not true. The detective laughed and shook his head. Oh, don't tell anyone I said that. My bosses get mad when I leak information. I mean, of course they do. My partner screwed up just the other day, and I got yelled at for it. I think you've met him, Ayase. Do you remember? His name's Ban. Older guy, messy hair, stubble beard. Ayase remembered him. When they come to talk to her, he's the older man, not the one in front of her, who had done most of the talking. He'd been pretty aggressive and sneaky too. He always yells at me, you know? Calls me an idiot. But what does he do? He ignores his job and goes off to look into weird stuff. And then he forces me to come with him. Lately, I've been getting the worst stomach aches. I mean, he's a good guy at heart, and he's really smart. Supposedly he solved a bunch of really tough cases, but you know. Is that why you came here? To complain about your partner? The detective chuckled when Ayase cut him off. No, sorry. I lost control of myself for a moment. Please, don't tell anybody what I said. Mamoru-suwa, I'm begging you. So, first question. Why did you do it? Even Ayase could tell he was talking about how she jumped off the roof. I've already told this story to the other detectives many times. Stop Gladio, the king of Wicked Hearts, from reviving? Was that it? It wasn't a suicide attempt. I was trying to bring my soul to a higher plane. That's all. So a suicide attempt. Got it. You were saying something similar about that song of yours. The one all the kids are listening to. That was the second question. Yes, I sighed a little. That song's not about New Gen. It was inspired by the apocalyptic psalms of the Book of Gladio, Chapter 3, verse 102. Gladio, the king of Wicked Hearts, is about to descend upon our world. 7 stakes forged from the black blood he shed are needed to stop his revival. And the stakes will become swords, passed into the hands of 7 black knights who have overcome the divine punishment of God. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Only humans who bear wicked hearts out of their own can defeat the king of wicked hearts. It's kind of like a movie, huh? I love it when they've got a cool backstory like that. Yes, his eyes narrowed at the detective's comment. It's not a story at all. It's real. Okay, last question. The detective ignored her protests, but she was used to that. Nobody had ever believed what she had to say. We investigated a bunch of Suime students besides you and Nichijo. He crossed his arms and allowed a little sigh. It felt like an obvious act, but Ayase wasn't inclined to call him out. What? This is a really stupid question. And I know it's not the kind of thing a cop's supposed to ask. It's kind of childish. I see. If you're not going to ask the question, then leave. My head hurts. Oh, actually, Ban was saying something weird. That you guys might be mages. Yasa's eyes narrowed, just a little, at the phrase, you guys. And that's not true, is it? It's true. She looked down on her hands instead of at the detective as she spoke. You're a fascinating girl, Yase. But New-gen has nothing to do with blah 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 blah. New-gen has nothing to do with Gladio. See. Well, whatever. The detective yawned, disinterested in his words. And then suddenly an electronic sound filled the room. The detective frantically pulled a phone out of his suit pocket. Crap, you're not supposed to use your phone in the hospital. I forgot to turn it off. Wow, and it's from a girl too. I've got a girl I'm in love with. We've been dating for 4 years. He grinned as he pressed the button to reject the call. He turned back toward Yase. You're a movie buff, Yase? You ever heard of Spark Wars? That was Count Darth Spider's theme. He's a character from the movie. Not Count Darth Spider. She wasn't interested in movies at all. Yase already decided that she was under no obligation to answer any more of his questions. He suddenly turned to look out the window. I'm a huge Spark Wars geek, you know? Oh, you don't care? Sorry then. Anyway, have a nice night. The detective left the room without waiting for her answer. Yase didn't bother to watch him as he went. Her eyes were watching the sky as it shifted from twilight to azure night. You, dork. I was waiting for you for so long. I hate you, but I love you. I absentmindedly watched Sedaton move around my monitor. The final episode of Bloodtoon had aired late last night. The story had really picked up by the end, and Natchan reviewed it highly. This is my 3rd time watching it, but I wasn't able to focus on it at all. I looked at the clock, and it was past 10 p.m. Mimi had left around 8. She cheered me up and given me kind words of encouragement. Having her here made me feel less lonely than I had been for the past week. But Mimi didn't seem to think things were as serious as they really were. It was as if she was trying to avoid any talk about New Gen. Maybe she thought I was annoying. She said somebody she knew had been hurt during the earthquake. Maybe she was busy dealing with that and didn't have time for me. No, but... maybe I was paranoid, sure, but I was still in danger. I could be killed at any moment, even right now. There had to be some reason why Shogun was so obsessed with me. If I could figure it out, maybe it would give me some clue as to how to fight back. Actually, he'd said something else just before I left. But the most special of you all is the boy who created the phrase, "Whose eyes are those?" Whose eyes are those? You couldn't go anywhere in Shibuya without hearing those words now. And online, everybody had even started using it as the killer's name. I've been using that phrase since I was a little kid. Shogun must have known that, and this was his way of sending me a message. Or maybe challenging me. When did I start using that phrase? I feel like somebody had said it to me. I vaguely remembered writing it in an essay done in elementary school. I'd even made it the title, "Whose Eyes Are Those?" I could barely remember what the essay was about. No, I wanted to know. What had I written in it? Did they still have it at home? It was so old they'd probably thrown it out years ago. But I always had a habit of putting important things in a big, empty box of candy I'd kept. I called it my treasure box. There's a chance it was still there. What should I do? Should I head home and check? But... I didn't want to have to face the enemy. I wouldn't know what to say.
僕は
I'm
どう
such
し
a
ようもなく
loser.
ヘタレだ。
Yes, you are. I slowly stood up from my chair, and then went over and slowly collapsed on the sofa. Yeah, what are you doing here? This isn't what it looks like. It's not like eating cheap soba at a roadside stall is one of my favorite things to do, okay? Hey, what are you smiling at, dork? Now I'm mad. Take this, samurai condenser. I looked up the ceiling, half listening to Sayura's dialogue. The ceiling was made of cold, exposed steel. There's nothing like knots of twisted grain to look at me, for me to look at and pretend I was seeing a human face. Suddenly, in the corner of my eye, I saw a metal box with a design I recognized mixed in with the boxes of H games on my bed in the loft.
あれって
Is that... I leapt off the sofa and went up the little ladder to look at the bed. A square, reddish-brown box, about the size of a B5 sheet of paper. And on the lid was the word Sable. This is it. My treasure box. I must have brought it from home. I didn't remember bringing it at all, but... Good job, me. I brought it down from my bed and opened the lid. It was filled with old tests, essays, and scraps from my sketchbook. Most of it was papers and just a few tiny objects. I took them all out of the box and began to rummage through them. I found what I was looking for almost immediately. After all, it was at the very top. Whose eyes are those? An old, faded essay. The handwriting on the title was awful. Was there some important secret hidden here within these words? Something that Shogun was obsessed with? What did the homeless man mean when he said most special? I gulped and began to read, being careful not to miss a single word. Whose eyes are those? By Takumi Nishijo, Class 4-3. I dream a lot. In my dream, I'm a grown-up, and I get in a time machine and go see myself in the present. The grown-up me doesn't look like me at all. Also, there were a lot of buttons in the time machine. One turns on a shower, one gives you shampoo. I asked the grown-up me how it works, and he said you can go to caveman times or dinosaur times. He asked me what was my worst class, and I said math. He said there's even a switch that will make you good at math. I tried to flip the switch, and he got mad. He said I need to study harder instead. The grown-up me only got mad the one time. Other than that, he was nice. He told me which girl I'm going to marry and stuff too, but that's a secret. He also asked about God. He said God's real. I think he's real too. Mom said that God sees everything, so if I do bad stuff, he'll send me to hell. So I think I shouldn't do any bad stuff at all. I need to be nice to my little sister too. Mom said when you do bad things, it's not God that sees it and comes for you, but the scary man. The scary man is the whose eyes are those monster. If he looks at you, you go to hell. God's eyes and the whose eyes are those eyes are everywhere, and there are lots of them. They're in the sky and on the ceiling and the walls of that school. So I need to study a lot and do lots of good things, I think. But since they're always watching, it's embarrassing to go to the toilet or take a bath. Also, ever since I was little, when I'm not sleeping and I just close my eyes, I'll sometimes dream. My mind is like a game or a manga. But when I do that, the whose eyes are those comes, and so I don't want to do it. I asked Mom, she said never do it. But even when I'm writing this essay, I asked grown-up me in my dream about the time machine, and he says he knows about it. But I'm a kid, so he wouldn't tell me. So, from now on, I want to do lots of good things so I can beat the whose eyes are those monster, the end.
なんだかよくわ
What
か
the
らな
hell
いな
was I talking about? About the only thing I got out of reading the essay was even back then. I've been able to sense the gaze of God. Maybe I was a really weird kid. It seemed impossible to get anything out of this bizarre essay. It'd be easier to decipher hieroglyphics. Or I remember that back then, I loved to scribble on things. Whenever there was a picture of some important old guy in the social study textbooks, I'd always given him a funny-looking mustache or sunglasses, and I loved to make little flipbook manga in the corners of my notebooks. I started to have even more and more fun drawing. One time, I'd even had them buy me a sketchbook. Nobody ever told me I was good at drawing, though. I flipped over the paper to look at the scribbles, smiling a little as I remembered the past. And what I saw was incomprehensible scribblings. Incomprehensible, with one exception. There was something I had seen very recently.
IR2
IR2. Was it a formula? Something else? Maybe just a meaningless combination of letters and numbers? I couldn't tell. But it was the same formula Shogun had shown me in the chat when he'd first made contact with me. Whose eyes are those? And IR2. Both of them were written on the back of this essay that I'd written many years ago. One of them I'd even forgotten myself. So, if Shogun knew it, that meant that he really had been reading my thoughts. Juan was staring closely at a file as he sat in Frisia's meeting room. Or rather, the small space in their office, surrounded by shelves that served as one. Yuo was sitting across from him, looking timid and scared. Every once in a while, she glanced across from him. She looked like a little kid showing a parent her report card. Juan was reading the report she compiled on Takumi Nishijo and the new gen cases. It even had the chat log between Takumi and Shogun from the day before the crucified incident. Yuo's conclusion was that Takumi was behind the new gen killings. Amazing. You linked all this up by yourself?
はい、
Yes,
一応。
I guess. Yuo looked down at her feet as Momose gave her the compliment. She seemed to be staring directly at the Garofroggy straps on her bag. She was talking to a police detective and the head of a private detective agency. They were professionals at this kind of thing. From their perspective, anything she tried to do on her own would probably just look like a child pretending to be a detective. But both Bottom and Mose were impressed with the quality of her report. This is pretty interesting stuff. I could tell you did your homework. The part about Takumi Nishijo having multiple personalities is especially intriguing. Nishijo Takumi has multiple personalities. The murders are occurring while the original personality sleeps, and another takes over. Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. But I think it's a little too far out there.
刑事さんは
You don't think that Nishijo is the
君のこ
killer?
とを犯人だって考えてないんですか？
Can I tell you the truth? Yuo's face tensed up for a second, and then she nodded. In the way the task force sees it, Takumi Nishijo isn't a suspect at all.
へえ、 そうなの。
Really? Was it just Yuo? Momose was surprised too. Bon chuckled a little. He leaned back into his chair and put his hands behind his head. At least in terms of the crucified case, Nishijo is innocent. They were able to recover fingerprints from the stakes used to pin the body to the wall. We got fingerprints from Nishijo and tried matching them. They weren't even close.
そん
But... Yuo began to turn pale, and her lips started shaking. As a theory she believed in so much collapsed right in front of her face, the first thing she felt was guilt all over... The first thing she felt was guilt about all the things she'd said to Takumi.
杭にあった指紋か
And
ら
thanks to this
容疑
prince,
者につい
we've
ては
almost
ほ
got
ぼ
our
固まっ
suspect
てん
nailed
だ
down.
まだマスコミ
We
にも
haven't
公表して
told
ないけ
the
どな
media yet, though.
ちなみにそれ
And by the way,
諏訪の
it
お
was
手柄
actually
だった
Sue
ら
who figured that out.
スワちゃんは頑張ってるって
Sue
いう
was
の
out
に
there working
バン
hard,
ちゃんはよく
and
こ
you're
こで
here
のんびりし
slacking
ていら
off,
れるわ
huh?
ね。
実はあれ
Actually,
捜査本
they
部
kicked
か
me
ら
off the
外さ
new
れたん
gen
だわ
task force.
はあ
What?
本来の捜査サボっ
And they
て
found out I was
G レート
looking
の
up
こ
the
ととか調
G
べてん
rate
の
stuff instead
上司
of
にバレ
doing
ちゃっ
my
たん
work.
だ
From Bond's perspective, there was actually no need for Sue to call him and tell him about the 7th murder. He wanted to tell his junior partner that, but he had missed his chance.
あんたね
Listen,
もっとう
I
まく
told you
立
to
ち
be
回りな
more
さい
careful
よ
about this stuff.
まあバンちゃんに
I guess it's my
G
fault for
レートのことを
telling
教
you
えた
about the
私にも
G
責
rate
任
in
は
the
あるけ
first
ど
place, though.
気にすんな
Don't worry about it.
それに G
The G
レ
rate
ート
thing
の
was
件は個
something
人
that I
的にも
took a
気になった
personal interest in.
まあ西条
Anyway,
にして
we're still
も
looking
貼り
into the
付け以外の
possibility
事
that
件
he
じゃ
might be
まだ
involved
捜
in
査
other
線上にい
cases
る
besides Crucified.
もしかするとユアち
You
ゃん
may
の
actually
推
be
理が
right
正しい
there.
かもしれん
ニュージェネは同
So
一
the
犯に
police
よ
are
る連
thinking
続殺人事
Nugent
件じゃないっ
isn't
て
actually the
警
work
察
of
は
one
考えてる
person?
の
まだな
We can't say yet.
ただつ
But
いさ
we
っ
just
き
had
第
our
7の
7th
事件が起
case.
きたようだしな個人的には犯
Personally,
人は
I
複数い
think
る
there
と
are
思
multiple
って
people behind this. Oops,
どう
I said too
いろいろ
much.
喋っちまった
When they find out I said any of
お前
this,
した
I'll
って
lose
し
my
まったら
job.
クビにな
Get
っ
that
ちま
off
う
the record.
今のはオフレコな
He smiled mischievously and put his finger to his lips.
で
So,
問題なんだ
no, to the point.
え
Huh? He was surprised. She was sure that she'd be called out here to talk about Takumi.
聞きたいことってのは
I wanted to ask you
学校の
about
ことなん
your
だ
school.
ユアちゃんは
You know a
青井
girl
瀬
named
名って子
Sana
を
Albi?
知ってるかい君の同級
She
生
should
のは
be
ず
in
だ
your grade. Yua thought a little, and then shook her head apologetically.
名前は聞いたことがあるような気がしますけど
But I've never spoken
話した
to
こと
her.
はありません
ああそうか
Oh, I see. え
その人が
Is she
犯人
the killer?
なんですか
ああ
No.
全くの
This
別
is
件
a
だ
totally different case.
昨日
I was
徹夜
up
したの
all
も
last
そ
night
の子のこ
because I
と
was
調べ
looking
てた
into
から
her.
な
あんたさっき女
So
子
all
高
that
生の
stuff you
生
were
態
saying
がどう
about
とかっ
looking
て
up high school girls. Bunk gave her a wink. Then he quickly turned back to Yua. You ever heard any stories about a girl at your school who's, say, really good with magic tricks?
聞いたことはい
え
No,
ありません
never.
けど
さっぱり話が
I'm
見え
not
ないわ
following
ね
this at all.
何のこと
What are you talking about?
例えば
For instance,
何もない空間から
maybe a magic trick where she
剣を
makes a sword
取り出す
appear
よ
out
う
of
な
nowhere.
手品とか
Yua's face jolted upwards. Her expression was filled with shock.
どうして
How did you
それ
know? Bond seemed a little surprised, despite being the one who asked the question.
心当たりがあるのか
You know something? Yua hesitated for a moment before giving him a firm nod.
どこで見た
Where did you see it?
駅の近くの
In a tunnel near the
地下道です。
station.
西条くんと
Nishijo and
岸本さん
Kishimoto
が
were.
フェスだな
You mean Fess,
それ
right?
で
And Yua gave him a brief description of how she chased after Takumi 2 weeks ago. How she'd gone to the manga cafe to talk to him. How she'd been a little too forceful when talking to him and he'd run away. How she chased him all throughout Shibuya. How he'd eventually lost her. Then when she was about to give up, she'd seen him and Ayase go and get to a tunnel.
だか
So,
ら私
so I
そ
hid
の
at the
階
top
段の
of
上から
the stairs and
二
watched
人の様
them.
子をこっそり伺っていたんです二人は階段
And
の
the
一
two of
番
them were
下
at
で
the bottom of the
何か
staircase
話してい
talking
て
about something.
あ
No,
どんな
I
ことを
couldn't
話してい
hear
たかは
what they
聞
were
き取れな
talking
かったんです
about.
けどそしたら
But
突然
suddenly,
岸本さんが
Kishimoto made a sword
Kimo.
appear out of nowhere.
何もないところから取り出したんですすごく大きな
It
剣で
was really big.
バッグにも
Too
入
big
ら
to
ないよ
fit
うな。
inside a bag.
まさか
No way.
俺が見た
Same
の
thing I saw.
え、
Huh?
俺が見たのは
When I
岸
saw
本じゃな
it,
かっ
it wasn't Kishimoto though.
た。さっき名前を出し
It was the
た
girl
青
I
い
just
セナっていう
mentioned,
少女。
Sena Aoi.
実は
We've been
葵
getting
が剣を
testimony
振り
about
回
her
してたって
swinging
いう
the sword around
目
all
撃証
over
言
Shibuya,
が
you see.
渋谷のあちこちから出てる。
その手品
I wonder if it's
渋谷
just
の
a
若い子
magic
たち
trick
の
the
間で
kids
流行
are
ってるの
into
かしら
these days.
でも
But
私
what
が
I
見たあ
saw
れは
didn't look like a
手品
magic
には
trick
と
at
ても
all.
見えませんでした。それに
And
他にも何か見たの
did you see something else?
信じてもらえ
I
るかどう
didn't
か
tell anybody
わからな
about
くて
this because
誰に
I
も
wasn't sure that
話した
anyone
こ
would
とは
believe me.
ないんですけど、あの時
But I
岸
did
本
just
さ
see
ん
her make a sword appear.
剣を出しただけじゃなくて、
You had paused for a moment to wet her dry lips. She didn't seem sure whether or not she should speak. The gaze was wandering about the room, looking anywhere but at the people in front of her. But eventually, she seemed to make up her mind and looked straight at Momose.
二人に
She split into
分身
two.
したんです。まるで
And
本
it
当
was
に
like
その
there
場に
were
二人
really
いる
two
みた
of
いで
her
した。
there.
私、
I couldn't
Wake-が
understand what was
わからなくて。
going on at all.
うん
There was a heavy silence in the meeting room. None of the three of them seemed to have any idea what to say.
とにかく
Okay,
一体
so we
ど
don't
ん
know
な
how
種
they're
があるの
doing
かわ
it,
かんねえが
but it looks like
そんな
there are
手品
several
みたい
people
な
in
真似がで
Shibuya
きる
who
連中
can
が
do these
この
magic
渋谷には
tricks.
何人かいるらしい。まあそれと
And
岸本綾瀬
we
の
also know that
青い
Sena
瀬名
Aoi and Yase
西
Kishimoto
条
have made
匠と
contact
接
with
触したこと
Takumi
は
and
確
Nishijo.
認済みだ。これが偶然
It's hard to
とは思えね
believe
えわ
that's a
け。
coincidence.
西条くん、
Nishijo.
あの少年の周囲では
It feels like there's something
現実
very
離れしたこ
strange
とば
going
かり
on
が起
around
きてる
to
ような
that
気がする。
kid. Hunter remembered what he'd said during his phone call.
怪獣か魔法使い
If
で
we're
済ませ
lucky,
られるな
it
ら
was just
よっぽ
giant
どいいけど
monsters and mages. The other two didn't hear his whisper. Momose had one of her employees bring them tea to break the oppressive silence. She took a sip on the side. Then, she forced a smile and tried to change the subject.
ところでゆあちゃん、そ
So,
のカバンに
Yua,
ぶら下がってる
those
カエ
little
ル、
froggies on your
最
back.
近流行ってる
Are
んでし
those
ょ
big with you kids these days?
あ、は
Oh,
い。
yes. Yua let out a sigh of relief, glad to be off the subject.
なんて言うんだっけ
What are they called again? Ghetto froggy.
ゲロカエルン
Ghetto
で
froggy.
す。
いろいろ種類が出て
There
る
are
ん
a
じゃ
lot
な
of
いか
different
10
types,
種類
aren't
ぐらい
there? 10 or so?
はい。
Yes.
私はその
I just got them from
友
a
達から
friend.
もらっただけなの
I
で
really don't know
詳しくは
much
知ら
about
ないん
them.
ですけど、
なんだってこんな
Why
手
would
抜き商品
something
が流行
that
るんだ
was
ろう
made so
な。
lazily be so
見た
popular?
目だって
I'm
俺
way
の方
cuter
が
than
ず
these
っと
things.
可愛いぞ。
Keep telling yourself that, Bon.
バンちゃん、
Bon.
寝言は寝てか
Don't
ら
be
言いなさい。
ridiculous.
冗
It
談
was a joke, okay?
私も
I
実はその
actually don't know
どうして流行
why
ってい
they're
るのか
popular
よ
myself.
くわからないんです。
Because Ghetto Froggy. I don't know.
あら、
No,
結構可
I
愛い
think
と
they're
思うけど
cute though.
ね。
ももちゃんの見る目
I'm
も
going
衰え
blind
た
in
な
your old age, Momo.
セロンは私の
The
方が
rest of
正しいって証
Japan
明してる
agrees
じゃ
with
ない。
me, though.
バンちゃんも買いに行った
You
方がい
should
い
go
わ
buy
よ
one。for yourself.
一体どこへ行
Where
けば
can
買え
you
るものな
even
んだ
get them?
えっと、
Oh,
ゲロカエ
there
ル
are
ン
Ghetto
の
Froggy
専門ショップ
stores
があちこ
everywhere.
ちにあって、
専門ショ
Ghetto
ップだ
Froggy stores?
そこで
If
金
you
曜
go
日に
there
行
on Friday
列
and
に並
stand
べば
in line,
買え
you
ると
could
思いま
probably
す。
get one.
金曜日
Friday.
毎週金曜日に
They
新
always
しいデ
release
ザイン
new
のものが
designs on
発売になるん
Fridays.
です。
Girls who like them
好きな子
should
は
tend to
えっと
try to
コン
buy
プリ
them
ート
all.
とか言って全部集めてるみたいで、
Bon and Mimose had begun to glance at each other as Yua spoke. Bon was stroking his chin.
金曜
Friday, huh?
流行るとは思えない
Something that shouldn't be popular suddenly becoming a huge hit.
G レートは
The
毎
G
週
rate goes
末
up
に上
every
昇する
weekend.
まさかバンちゃん
Don't tell me, Ba.
当たってみ
It's
る価
worth
値はあ
looking
るかも
into.
な
Not Ghetto Froggy being a suspect. No. When I went to school on Thursday, I got an unexpected offer from Misumi to go visit Ayase in the hospital. I hadn't thought of that at all, and it caught me off guard. But for some reason, before I could answer, Mimi had said she wanted to go. I ended up going along with them. Just to be clear, it's not that I was some cold person who didn't care about her. But with the threat of Shogun looming, I didn't have it in me to worry about other people. I didn't want to die. Misumi had gone in through the front door, but when he got to the lobby, he didn't seem sure what to do.
どうしたの？
What's wrong?
いや
I just
岸
realized
本の
that I
病室っ
don't know what
て
room she's
ど
in.
こなんだろうなって思ってよ。
Well, had he come all this way without actually bothering to check? If so, what an idiot.
ここは外来
This is
棟
the
だよ。
outpatient wing.
病棟は
The
隣。
inpatient rooms are next door. Get
そうなのか。
really.
大臣。
Daichin,
しっかりしてよ
get yourself together. AH Tokyo General Hospital. This is the hospital I'd come to ever since I was little. I'd just been here a while ago, in fact, so I had a pretty good idea of the basic layout. Suddenly, I remember what happened to Dr. Takashina, and let out a small moan that the others didn't hear. As Misumi headed for the inpatient rooms, I looked behind me.
で、病
So,
棟の
what do you
暗号室
think
だ
her
と
room
思う。
number is?
そんなの
I
わか
don't
んないよ。
know. This is a general hospital, with any number of departments in it, I would
た
guess.
多分
Maybe
外科じゃないかな。
surgery?
でも
Oh,
もしかすると精
Maybe
神
the
科かも。
mental ward. When she'd fallen, she hadn't looked like she was that badly injured. And if she was in bad enough shape mentally to try and jump off a building, it's entirely possible they put her there. It happened to me after that incident at O Front for some reason.
タクって物知りだな。
You're pretty smart.
常識でしょ？
Everybody
常
knows
識
this. Everybody, right, Taku? Maybe not everybody. Wouldn't have known unless I'd been there so many times. Mimi stopped just before we got to the inpatient area.
私、お手
I'm
洗い
gonna
行って
go
くる
use the restroom.
先
You
に行っ
guys
てて
go on ahead of me. She waved and headed back toward the outpatient wing. Misumi and I figured that we'd bother the other patients if we wandered around, so we decided to ask about Ayase at the nurse's station. Just like I thought, they gave us the number of a room in the psych ward. Oh boy, delusion time. The room was small and simple in layout. There was a bathroom on the right side of the entrance, and a bed near the back. The evening sun was pouring in through the window on the far wall. There was no sign of Ayase herself. The bed was unmade, so she must have been here a little bit ago.
どこ行ったんだ？
Where'd she go? I
さ
don't
あ
know. The window was open. The wind was blowing into the room, making the white curtains billow. I wandered over to the window. I didn't go to look at anything. I didn't go to close the window. It was just a sudden urge, with no real reason behind it. I stood at the window and went to look up at the sky. Then I saw a shadow. Something fell down silently from above. And for a second, my eyes met with its own. The shadow disappeared. I heard the loud sound of something smashing into something below.
なんだ？
What? I clasped where I stood. My body started to shake violently. I realized what it was I had just seen. Ayase Kishimoto. She'd fallen from above. and then hit the ground. If I looked out the window, I'd see her there, covered in blood, rain splattered all over the pavement. Just before she died, her eyes had met. I was the last person to see her. I was the last person she saw while she was alive. An awful scream poured from my mouth as I put my hands to my head in terror. Oh yeah, we're having a delusion.
見ろよタク。
Look,
変な本
Taku,
があるぞ。
there's a weird book here. I looked up in shock when Misumi said my name. I was standing in the corner of the room, nowhere near the window. I ran over to the window and looked out. Yase was nowhere to be seen below me. Phew, it was just a delusion. I almost collapsed where I stood, but managed to grab Bo onto the windowsill. He'd taken a book off the shelf and was reading it.
ヌーだぜ。
Check it out. It's a copy of New.
この雑誌。
I didn't even
まだ
know
続い
this
てたん
thing
だ
was
な。
still running. New was a magazine that dealt with UFOs, aliens, psychic powers, religions, urban legends, strange phenomena, ancient super civilizations, and lost technology. Anything even tangentially related to the occult. It didn't surprise me in the least that a girl who constantly talked about crazy stuff like Ayase was reading it.
こっちの文庫本
And this
は。
paperback here,
何々
the apocalyptic psalms
グラ
of
ジオ
the
ルキ
Book of
黙示
Gladio.
録詩編
Looks like a fantasy novel.
ファンタジー小説っぽいな。
I never heard of the book, but I had heard of the word Gladiel somewhere before. Where was it again? I felt like it had been really recently.
岸本と
If
付
we're
き合う
gonna
となる
take
と、
Kishimoto,
この趣
we'll
味に
have
合
to
わせ
put
ないと
up
い
with
け
her
ないの
hobbies
か。
too, huh? That'll be rough.
大変そうだぜ、これは。
Was he still planning on dating Ayase somehow? Last time she'd shot him down hard.
あ
Suddenly, I realized Ayase's D-sword was leaning up against the wall. Its shape reminded me of a space battleship you might see in a sci-fi movie. Every time I saw it, I was struck by how cool it looked, and the way it combined beauty and cruelty. It wasn't glowing right now, it was just sitting there. But still, you could feel its heavy presence. Izumi showed no indication that he saw the sword. I guess normal people really couldn't see them. Maybe if I just took it without telling Ayase, it would be mine then, right? If I could get a D-sword that easily, all my problems would be solved, right? I gulped and reached out for the weapon with a trembling hand. I went to grab the blade. I thought I grabbed it, but my hand passed right through it. I grabbed only thin air. I tried again, but the same thing happened. I couldn't take it. I couldn't even touch it. Was the sword not real booted right now? Since there was no shared awareness of its existence, it was just a delusion of Ayase's. An illusion, a dream, an afterimage.
何やってんだ？
What the hell are you doing? Misumi was looking at me, confused. We waited another 10 minutes, but there was no sign of Ayase. Mimi, who'd supposedly just gone to the bathroom, was nowhere to be seen either. Where had she gone?
リミって
Did
この
Rimi
病
know
室
what
の場
room
所
Ayase was
知っ
in?
てたか？
We asked about the room at the nurse's station after splitting up with Rimi. She might be wandering around looking for us.
あいつバカだからな。
Rimi's pretty dumb.
俺たちみ
She
たい
might
に
not think of
誰かに
asking
聞こ
somebody
うっ
like
て
we
発想
did.
がないのかもしんねえぞ。
探しに
Let's go look for her. I was nervous without her around. There was no way to know for sure if this hospital was safe. If Shogun was reading my mind, he'd know exactly where I was.
そうだな。
Yeah,
待つ
I'm
のもあ
tired
った
of
し。
waiting.
タクも
And
あ
you're
いつがいな
probably
いと
pretty
寂しい
lonely
だろう
without
からな。
her.
なあ、
Hey,
ぶっちゃけ
tell me the truth.
リミとは
What's the
どう
deal
なん
with you
だ？
and Mimi?
え
Huh?
付き合ってんのか
I'm
って聞い
asking
て
if
んだ
she's your
よ。
girlfriend.
お前
You two
ら
are spending an
最
awful
近
lot of
結
time
構いい
together,
感じじゃ
right?
ね？
付き合って
We're not
ないよ
dating. As I spoke, my face flushed. Me and Rimi dating. I had some delusions about the idea, sure. But I wasn't into 3D girls. I wasn't into 3D girls, but Rimi was a pretty big part of my life now. But when Rimi had offered to stay by my side, she also said this.
そんなの友
Because
達だからに
we're
決まっ
friends,
てるでし
right?
ょ
In other words, she saw me as a friend. She'd have no interest in dating a creepy otaku like me, obviously. But Rimi didn't seem like the type you'd want to date anyway. Yasumi and I decided to split up and look for her. Yasumi checked the floor below, so I went to check the one above us.
Amisha!
Ami, where are you? Ami. I passed by an elderly man in his 50s. He was clearly a patient here. He was slowly staggering down the hallway, calling out for Ami, whoever that was. I ignored him and kept walking. Walking around the hospital didn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. It's probably because I've been here so many times. Still, the thought that Shogun might appear from behind every corner or open the door made my heart ache. Heart race, rather. There were those strange screams I sometimes heard too. They were bad for my heart. The walls and floor of the hallway were all the same off-white color. Some doors were open and some weren't. I peeked inside a few of them to see if Shogun was lurking there. Each room had 2 beds, and I couldn't see human-shaped forms beneath the sheets. Those must have been patients sleeping. Oh, and I could see. But for some reason, all of them were turned away from me, and I couldn't see their faces. There weren't many people out in the hallway. There'd been an old man calling for Ami, and then a nurse. They'd been the only 2 I'd seen. I didn't want to stay here for too much longer. I wasn't sure why, but that's how it felt. The air felt heavy. It wasn't unpleasant, but I felt like I didn't belong here. Bleh. As I kept going forward, I saw that the hallway turned to the right. And there must be more rooms down there, I thought, as I nervously rounded the corner. Huh. I saw a wall right in front of me. Unlike the off-white of the other walls, this one was painted pure black. For some reason, my heart began to race faster and faster. I couldn't move. My vision began to swim. I thought I was just feeling dizzy and closed my eyes, but when I put my fingers on my eyelids, I could feel my eyes twitching beneath them. A cold feeling, like ice, worked its way up my body from below. I stood there, completely still, forgetting to breathe. I stared at the black in front of me. It felt like I was pulling me, drawing me in. An endless black that continued on for eternity. There was nothing there, but somebody was watching me. I could feel the gaze of God stabbing into the back of my neck. It was far worse than had ever been at the base. Don't look at me. I used every scrap of my mental power I had to force my eyes closed. Only then I could breathe. Me too. I stepped back. I lowered my head, turned around, and ran. I headed back to the floor Ayase's room was on as fast as I could, stopping to catch my breath only after I headed down the stairs. I touched my neck and found it was covered with a thick, sticky layer of sweat. It wasn't just my neck. My whole body was soaked. What the hell was that? Was the Shogun reading my mind? I could still sense the gaze of God. It was still hard to breathe. I was still cold. I felt exhausted. I wanted to go home. I wanted to have Rimi take me back to the base, and I could stay there and never leave it again. Even if I did manage to find Ayase, she'd be annoyed, not happy to see me. Yasumi was only here because he was trying to get laid. I was an idiot to play along with it. I should just go home, before Shogun and Yua show up. Those 2 could appear anywhere at any time. They'd be able to find me easily. I couldn't relax anywhere. I headed back to Ayase's room. I was staggering, barely able to walk. I had to put my hand on the wall for support. Was Mizumi back, I wondered? I slowly kept moving forward, praying that he'd manage to find Mimi.
山井さんがまた
Mr.
ア
Yamai
ミ
was
ちゃんって
calling
いう名
out
前
for
を呼んで
Ami
たんですよ
again. I could hear the voices of the nurses in front of me. I looked up to see two nurses walking toward me. One was young, the other was a plump older woman.
一体誰のことを探
Who's
し
he
てるの
looking
か
for, do you think?
それこの
There's
病
an
院に
old
伝わ
ghost
る
story
階段
about
よ
this hospital.
誰も知らない
There's
幻
a
の
room
病
here
室
that
があっ
nobody
て
can find.
そこに
It
アミー
belongs
ちゃん
to
が
a
入院
patient
してる
named
らしい
Ami.
わもう何年も
The
前
rumor's
か
been
らある
around for
噂
years. I put my head down and waited for the two of them to pass. I held my breath so they couldn't hear how much trouble I was having breathing. I could tell they were looking at me suspiciously, but all I could do was try to ignore them. When they were gone, I started to walk again. Somehow I managed to make it back to the nurse's station. Yase's room was in front of the nurse's station. I must have passed it. I groaned and wiped the sweat off my forehead. It still felt like somebody was watching me. I could feel a piercing sensation in my chest. My ears were ringing too. I felt awful. It seemed like I might pass out at any moment. I'd been just fine when I got here. What had happened to me? I was in so much pain. I just couldn't take it. I decided to get help from one of the nurses at the nurse's station. But there's only one person there. Evidently, she hadn't noticed me. She had her back turned and was muttering something as she worked. There was a clipboard in her hand. She was writing something on the paper it held. No. I met her before. It was Hazuki, the nurse. That's right. This is the mental ward at IH Tokyo General Hospital. Of course she'd be here. I talked to her twice in just the last month. Perfect. If she saw me, she'd help me out immediately. Just then, I heard a beeping noise. It sounded important. Hazuki put down her clipboard and flipped a switch in front of her. The beeping noise stopped. Evidently, someone had hit the button to call a nurse. She quickly ran out of the nurse's station. She seemed not to notice me. I was suffering so much. Just a few feet away from her, and she didn't even see me. I couldn't stand. The vertigo was incredible. Helplessly, I went inside the nurse's station and decided to wait for her to come back. I found the stool she'd been sitting on and sat down on it. My head hurt so bad. It was like the earthquake a week ago. But the pain was different, somehow. Maybe. I wanted something to drink. I've been out of breath for so long that even breathing hurt. I took a quick glance around me. I saw the clipboard Hazuki had been writing on. I could see what was drawn on it. Huh? Last time I'd seen her, she'd been smiling as she'd written something on it. I thought she was taking down my temperature, or the names of the drugs I should be given. Huh? So, what was this? I couldn't understand.
これって
Isn't this... I'd seen it somewhere before. I'd seen this terrible drawing somewhere before. Where? Where had I seen it? My head hurt so bad. The stabbing pain. The prickling in the back of my neck. Don't look at me. I picked up the clipboard. There were several papers there, all medical charts. I flipped through them. The second one had the same terrible picture. I flipped to the next. The third one was the same. The fourth two, and the fifth, and the sixth. They all had the same picture on them. This picture. It was crucified. And the seventh was... Sonome daru no me. The shipping crate that Takumi Nishijo called home was perched silently on the roof of an old building in Shinsen. Sena Aoi was coming here now for the second time. The first had been a few days prior, when she ran into Takumi and Kozue at Center Street. She secretly followed him home. That's how she found this place. That's nice. Sena, we shouldn't be doing this. Kosapi doesn't want to be a thief. Fumio. Then why did you come? Sena spoke coldly, without even looking back at Kozue. Sena had come here to sneak into Takumi's room. Takumi Nishijo wasn't normal. After talking to him several times, that was the conclusion she'd reached. He was different from normal gigolo-maniacs like Sena and Kozue. Either the strength of his delusions was incredibly intense, or he was receiving some kind of artificial support. Either way, his existence seemed like it was unstable. Somehow. Something about him bothered Sena a lot. She was looking for a man named Hatano. And it was possible that Takumi Nishijo was connected to him somehow. She had no way of being sure. But if there was any chance, even a small one, she wouldn't rest until she ruled it out with her own eyes. As long as she kept doing that, she'd find her target eventually. That's what Sena believed. There was the padlock on the door. Sena gave a little snort and brought down her D-sword. She'd already real-booted it. The padlock shattered easily. When Takumi comes back, he'll get mad at you. Sena had already seen that Takumi had left school with two friends, heading in the direction of the station. This background art is so pretty, yeah. The game is pretty. And even if he did find out and she didn't care, Sena would do anything to achieve her goal, even if that meant making somebody mad or even having them call the cops. She opened the door and went inside. The place was like a garbage dump. Sena couldn't help but wince and give a small moan. It's so filthy, huh? You seem like you're having fun, Kozue. Should I take my shoes off? Sena sighed and went inside the room without bothering to remove her shoes. There are lots of dolls, NoAH. Boo. I guess Takumi's a big pervert. Wow. Sugoi na. Sena ignored Kozue, who seemed strangely impressed for some reason, and went over to the computer. She turned on Takumi's PC. While she waited for it to boot up, she ran her eyes across the contents of the desk. Her eyes narrowed as she picked up an old sheet of essay paper. Ah. Hey! 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 It's whose eyes are those? Kozue had been looking over Sena's shoulder. She was jumping up and down with delight. I knew it! Takumi was the whose eyes are those guy. Kozapi was right. Pam paka pam pam. Sena, however, seemed much less interested in the essay than Kozue. She flipped it over to see if anything was written on the other side. Suddenly, her eyes went wide with shock. This is... What she saw there was... Yupi, there are lots of people. And is this a robot? It says IR too. Sena. Sena was gritting her teeth so loud that you could physically hear it. Her expression was even angrier than usual, and her hands shook with rage as she held the essay. So that's it. Nishijo's the one who created IR2. Her voice was quiet. Senna crumpled up the essay into a ball and crushed it with her fist. Yep. I got up and left the nurse station, and I was wandering around the hospital. My brain still felt like it was full of fog. I decided not to think about what I'd just seen. Somehow, I ended up at the stairwell. Misumi was there, standing in front of the window.
どうしたタク?
What's wrong, Tucker?
汗びっしょり
You're
じゃねえ
soaked
か
with sweat.
顔色も悪
You
いし
look like crap too.
顔色悪い
No,
の
I
は
guess
い
you
つも
always look like crap.
もしかして
Were you
走って
running
探
around
してたの
looking
か
for the two of them?
そりゃ
I guess
バ
that'd
カも
get
する
you
ぜ
run out of breath.
無茶す
You're
るね
kinda crazy
お前って
sometimes, you know? I wiped away the sweat and tried my best to pretend I was okay.
リミと岸本
I found Rimi
見つけ
and
たぜ
Kishimoto. But I couldn't see the two of them anywhere, then, for some reason. He pointed out the window.
あそこだ
There. It took a moment to catch my breath before walking over to the window. From the window, I could see the outpatient building next to us. The outpatient and inpatient areas were separate buildings. There was a walkway that led between them, but the two were a distance apart. The inpatient building was a few stories taller, and from the stairwell, you could just look down on the outpatient building's roof. There was a garden there, with a planter filled with red flowers. It was a space for patients to relax. Rimi and Ayase were facing in the middle of the garden. Or standing in the middle of the garden, facing each other. Ayase was wearing her pajamas. They seemed to be discussing something. The two of them didn't know each other, right?
なんか妙
Is
に
it just
シリ
me,
アス
or
に
does
見
it
えね
feel
え
like
か
they're talking about something serious?
Oh.
Yeah. They seem to be glaring at one another. Suddenly, Ayase took a step forward and slapped Rimi across the face. Even from here, I could see that she'd given it her full strength. Now Ayase was walking away from Mimi. Though she was heading toward the connecting corridor, she might come back to her room.
今
She
ビンタ
just
した
slapped her, right?
よな
I nodded. Mimi was standing there, alone. She wasn't moving.
あの二人って
Are those two mad at each other over something? Maybe. I hadn't heard anything like that at all. Misumi suggested that we pretend we'd never seen it. I eagerly agreed. We decided to leave Rimi where she was and head to Ayase's room. I was feeling a lot better than I had a bit ago. The gaze of God was gone. That awful feeling had disappeared like it had never happened.
Oh.
No. Misumi let out a soft gasp. He was walking ahead of me. I looked up and saw Ayase heading towards us. She was looking down at her feet. She seemed sick and pale, and was having trouble walking. Her expression seemed dark too. We ended up running into each other right in front of her hospital room.
よ岸本
Hey,
さん
Kishimoto. Ayase looked up in surprise at his cheerful greeting. And when she saw me, she gave me a smile that somehow made it look like she was about to cry. Why was she smiling just now? Because she'd heard about the mess at Wolfront and how much of a fool I'd made of myself? Or did she just like me? If it was the former, that was incredibly depressing.
俺たち君のお見舞
We
いに来
came
たん
to
だよ
pay you a
ね
visit.
つうか岸本さん
Wow.
パジャ
You're
マ
cute in your
姿も可愛い
pajamas.
じゃん
He was already using his pickup artist skills. Talk about being fast on your feet.
入って
Come in. Ayase, for her part, wasn't nearly as cold as she'd been to him before. She opened the door and invited us in. She didn't mention the fact that she just slapped Rimi on the roof at all. I wasn't sure whether she was just hiding it, or if she'd just totally gotten over it in this short time. As always, it was impossible to tell what Ayase was thinking. Taku,
やっぱ見
we
舞いに来た
need
のは正
totally
解だ
right
った
to
ぜ
come visit her.
今日は好
Today's a
感作
lucky
だ
day. Misumi gave a little thumbs up, making sure Ayase didn't see. He was panting a little as he went into the room. I followed him. I wanted to go home with Rini, but I didn't have the courage to talk to her right now. I don't know why it had happened, but if somebody had slapped her that hard, she must be feeling pretty bad, and I didn't have the words to make her feel better. I also sat down on the bed. Misumi sat down next to her. Somehow managed to make it look natural in the process. I was astonished at his boldness. Seeing him go on the offensive was making me feel a little odd. I also gave him a glance before fixing her gaze on me. As she stared at me, I didn't know what sort of look I should have on my face. In the end, I decided to look at my feet.
怪我どう?
How are you feeling?
もうだいぶ
Looks
良
like
くな
you're
ってるみた
doing
いだけど。
better.
なんか必要なものある
If
な
there's
ら遠慮
anything
なく
you
言って
need,
よ。
tell me. I mean
俺
it.
がすぐ
I'll
買っ
go
てき
get
て
it
や
for
る
you
ぜ。
right away. He was staring at her hand. Evidently, he was looking for a chance to grab it. Should I not be here?
あ、
Oh,
小説と
do
か
you
読
read
む?
books? I'm a
俺
big
さ、
fan of
ウ
the
ラジオオルフ
apocalyptic
黙示録
songs
詩
of the
編って
Book
のが
of
好きなんだけど。
Gladio. You ever heard of it?
岸本さん、知ってる?
匠
Takumi. I guess I ignored Misumi's question. Instead, she said my name.
君は
You're
グ
one
ラ
of
ジオールの
Gladio's
七騎士
seven
の一
knights.
人よ。
Oh.
え?
Huh? There she goes again. Even after her failed suicide attempt, evidently Ayasi's personality hadn't changed.
やっぱり導きだったん
It
だわ。
was the great will that brought the two
君
of us
と私
together
が出会
after
ったの
all.
は
She spoke, softly, unemotionally. She began to share whatever crazy backstory she had in her head.
君の邪心は
Your wicked heart is
とても強大。
incredibly powerful,
だからこそ
and
言う
that's
こ
what
とな
makes you
しなら
perfect. The
黒騎
perfect
士と
Black
しての
Knight.
素質は君が今経
All the
験して
pain
い
you're
る苦しみは
experiencing right now is
すべ
divine
て神
punishment,
罰
a test
大いなる意
set
志
out
によ
before
る
you
試
by
練
the
だ。
great will.
それを乗り越えた時
When
に
you overcome it,
理想度
the
は召
D-Sword will
喚
be
されるわ。
summoned. It will come to
君の
you,
手に必ず。そして
and then
現れる
it
のよ
will appear.
邪心の黒き
And the
大
great
者。
black serpent of the wicked
あらゆる
hearts,
崩壊を飲
that
み
which
込む
is the same, and
邪
yet
心王の
different,
身を砕
which
くことがで
swallows all
き
destruction, and can shatter the
同質に
body
し
of
て
the king of wicked
異
hearts.
質なるものが現実なの。
It's all real.
グラジオール
Gladio,
理想
the
度
D-Swords.
かまいたちが
And the Kamitachi is
Sonakashi.
proof.
実在しない現象
If it
は
wasn't real,
後
the
世の
stories
言
about it
葉と
wouldn't
して
have been
残るこ
passed
とは
down
な
through
い
the
わ。
ages.
知っている
Do you know what the word
語源は
Kamaitachi is a corruption of?
かまえたち。
Kamaitachi. It means the blade held ready.
それは理
It
想度を
refers
意
to a
味している。
D-Sword.
信じて
Believe,
匠。
Takumi.
グラジオールを倒すのよ。
Defeat Gladio together with
Ishani.
me. Bad delusion time. Gladio. I remembered. I'd seen it when I first looked up the D-Sword. From what I read, the legends of the D-Sword originally came from old texts and apocrypha about the legend of Gladio. Supposedly, anyways. Misumi suddenly stood up and walked towards me. As he passed by me, he put his hand on my shoulder.
俺もうついていけねえや。
This is too much for me.
あとは任せた。
You can have her. I allowed an annoyed sigh and went to leave the room.
待って。
Wait. Yes, I finally spoke to him for the first time, but for some reason, there was a stern look on her face.
逃がさないわよ。
I won't let you go.
あ?
Huh?
何
What,
何
you're actually
俺
going
の
to
相手し
talk
てく
to
れん
me?
の?
ええ、
Yes.
そうね。
Yes, indeed.
あなたが邪神王の
I
使
know
い
you're a
だという
servant
こ
of
と
the
は
king of the
分か
wicked
っている。
hearts. What? Was this some new part of her fantasy? Misumi looked really annoyed to be forced to play a role in whatever was going on in her head. Most people would be. even as a joke. It wasn't funny at all. But Yase was. It seemed dead serious.
Takumi.
Takumi. Yase said my name, and then tossed me a small paring knife. She must have been hiding it beneath the sheets. Confused, I fumbled and grabbed it. There was a cover on it, thankfully, or I would have cut myself badly.
そいつを
Kill him.
殺すのよ。
But... him. As she spoke, her gaze was locked on Misumi. What the hell was going on here? I held the knife in my hand, with no idea what to do.
おいおい
Come on now.
殺せときたか
Kill me?
いく
I
ら
was
なんで
going a
も
little far,
それ
isn't
は
it?
ひどくねまあ
I
仕
mean,
事に嫌わ
I
れて
know
る
you
のは
don't
分かっ
really
てた
like
けど
me. I didn't think you'd
まさ
say
か
something
面と向
like
か
that
っ
right to my
てそんなこと
face.
言われるとは思わなかったぜそれで
So,
な
what
んだっ
was
け
this all about again?
グラビトーン
Graditron?
邪神
Wicked hats?
何のことだか
I don't know
俺には
what
さっ
the
ぱり
hell
わ
you're
かんねえんだ
talking
けど
about.
なタク
Daku,
とりあえ
just
ず
put the
ナイフ
knife
を置けよ
down. You don't need to play
仕事の
along
妄想
with your
に付き合うな
delusions.
妄想じゃないわ。
It's not a delusion.
匠。
Takumi,
そいつの言葉を
don't
信
believe
じない
him.
で。
Misumi took a step away from Ayase, his lips pressed tight with fear.
お前
You-
異
You're
常だぜ
crazy.
匠。
Takumi,
早く殺すの
kill
よ。
him. Now.
でないとグラジオー
The
ルに
Gladio will
君の存在
find
が筒抜
you.
けになってしまうわ。
I quietly gave the knife back to Ayase.
匠。
Takumi.
君の言ってることは
What you're saying is
めちゃく
crazy.
ちゃだよ
She looked up at me with sorrow in her eyes. Don't look at me with those eyes. I can't kill Misumi. All the stuff about Gladio didn't matter. If I killed somebody, I'd be a criminal. There's no way I was gonna let that happen. That was all.
さすが親
Of
友
course. Your
お前な
best
ら
friend.
俺を
I
選
knew
ぶって
you'd
信じ
choose
てた
me.
ぜタク
Taku. Misumi patted me on the shoulder. Gaze. And subtly. Very subtly. His hand went for the knife on Ayase's lap.
じゃあな
Bye.
電波
Crazy
女
bitch. In a single smooth movement, he grabbed it, slid off the cover, and swung it. Blood spurted out from Ayase's neck. I could feel its heat as it fell on my face. Ayase's eyes were wide with shock, staring at me. She slowly fell backward onto the bed. The white sheets began to turn red with blood.
やっちまったな
Well,
タク
now you've done it, Taku.
今のが最後
And
の
that
チャン
was
スだ
your
った
last chance. Your last chance to stop Gladio's revival. That's not a paring knife. I couldn't even scream.
正しかったのは
Kishimoto was right
岸本
about
の
me,
方
you
だった
know.
ってわけだ
As he spoke, he climbed on top of Ayase. He dug the knife into her eye socket and ripped out her eye without the slightest hesitation. Her body didn't move at all, even as the knife went in. He glanced at me, smiling cruelly.
その目誰の目
Whose eyes are those? I came back to my senses. Ayase wasn't covered in blood. She was just sitting on the bed. Misumi was nowhere to be found. Was that a delusion? I let out a deep sigh. What an awful delusion. Feeling guilty, I apologized to Ayase in my mind. Ayase, for her part, was still rambling. She hadn't noticed anything at all.
すべてはお告げよ。
All this is a message.
すでに
All seven should have gathered in Shibuya by now. The
7
seven
の黒
Black
騎士よ。
Knights.
あとは
Now all that's
全員
left
が
is for them
覚醒す
to
るだけ。
awaken.
急がないと
And if you don't
世
hurry,
界は
the world
滅
will
び
be
るわ。
destroyed.
グラジオールの手に
Destroyed
よ
at
って
the hands of Gladio. Is there? What? Where's support valve? Let's see. Takumi, Kozuki, Rimi definitely has one, even if it hasn't been confirmed. Senna, Fess. Who are the other two? Well, I guess Yua and Shogun? Is that it? I don't know. Yusumi and I both looked at each other and shrugged as we walked down to the first floor.
俺
And
もう
then
岸本のこと
slowly
は
over
どうでもよくなっ
Kishimoto.
た
Yeah?
これまでの俺のポリシー
Until
はな
now,
タク
I've had a rule, Taku.
可愛ければ
And she's cute.
何
I'll
で
put
も
up with
許してやる
anything.
だったけどそりゃ間違って
But
た
that
よ
was wrong. She was too nuts
強
for
烈
me.
なテンパ俺には受け止めらんねえよ素直に
I'll just focus my attention on
Kozoe-chan
Kozoe, I guess. I wasn't sure that was a good idea either. Yusumi already had a girlfriend after all.
お前マジで
You
すご
really
いな
got my respect though.
岸本のあの脳みそを
You
花
managed to
畑な
listen to
話
Kishimoto's crazy talk for almost half an
30分近くも
hour.
聞いてられるよ
I'm in awe.
俺尊敬したぜ俺は3分
I
も持た
couldn't
なかった
handle 3 minutes of it.
この
Me
俺
of
から
all
ぞ
people. Okay. Little kamoji. I kept an eye on my surroundings as I walked, only occasionally responding to some comment Misumi made. When we got to the outpatient building lobby, I could see Rimi standing there, looking a little spaced out. Cold wind was rustling through her hair, and I could see she lacked her usual cheerful demeanor. She was looking up at the night sky as if some big problem was on her mind.
おーい
Hey,
Rimi!
Mimi! When Misumi said her name, she turned to us with a sudden bright smile on her face and waved energetically at us. I finally found you! Seeing her smile made me feel relieved. I found myself running up to her. Of course, I couldn't hug her or anything like that, so running up to her was all I did. I'm happy to see you again.
また会えて嬉しい。
どこほっつき歩い
Where
てたん
have you
だ
been?
病室
I
どこ
didn't
か
know
わ
which
からな
room
く
she
て
was in.
あちこ
I
ち
was
さま
looking
よっち
all
ゃっ
over
た。
for it.
ひどいよ。
How could you guys just leave me
置い
like
てくなん
that?
て。
That's so mean. She gave us a show of fake crying.
お前が先に行けっ
You're
て
the
言っ
one
たん
who
だ
told us to go on without you.
そうだったね。
That's right, isn't it?
で、岸
So,
本さんには
did you
会え
find
た？
Kishimoto? I nodded. Misumi was behind me. I could tell he was grinning.
お前
Kishimoto
岸本にビン
slapped
タ
you,
されてた
didn't
だろ
she? Huh?
さ
I
て
don't know what you're
何の
talking
ことでしょ
about.
う？
Evidently, Rimi had wanted to keep the fact that Ayase had slapped her a secret. I hadn't intended to bring it up. Misumi, read the room.
隠そうったって無駄だ
No
ぜ
sense in hiding it.
俺は一
I
日
saw
中
the whole
見てた
thing.
も
Every
う家
second
政
of
婦の
it.
ようにな
Oh,
なんだ、
he saw it.
バレてたのか。
She gave us an awkward look, and then stared up into my eyes.
もしかして、
Did you see it
Taku
too,
見てたの？
Taku?
えっと、
Oh,
そうだ
that's
俺と
right.
タクで
Taku and I got a
決定的
good
瞬
look
間を
right,
バ
but
ッチ
it
リ見てた
happened. Don't tell her that. Oh boy, time for another delusion.
なんだ、
Aw,
そ
I
れじゃ
look like an idiot
必死
for
にごまか
trying
そうとして
to
たのが
hide it.
バカみたいじゃない。屋上に行ったら、
I
ちょ
gone
うど
up to
岸
the
本さん
roof
が
and
い
there
た
she
から、
was there.
つい
Asked her a
気にな
question
って
I've
た
been
ことを質
wondering
問しちゃった
about.
の。そしたら、
And I guess
機嫌損
she
ねた
got
みたい。
mad. What question?
なんだよ気になってた
What
ことって
question?
ね、あなたは
I said,
もうずっ
You've
とこ
been
の
in
病
this
院に入
hospital
院
the
し
whole
てたんで
time,
しょっ
haven't
て。
you?
どういう意味だそれ
What do you mean?
あのね、岸本さんは
Kishimoto never
退
left
院
the
なんてして
hospital.
なかったの。
Mimi seemed a little proud as she shared this information with us.
たまにしか学校
The
に来な
reason
かった
she
の
only
も
came
この病
to
院から
school
無断で通
once
って
in
た
a
から。
while was that she actually wasn't supposed to be coming at all. She was slipping out of the hospital to do it. The same with her concerts.
そして
And
ニュージェ
also,
ネ事
New
件
Gen
は
was actually a
岸本さん
delusion
が
she
生み
came
出し
up
た妄
with,
想を
which
彼
she
女
made
自身
real
の
by
手で
doing the
実行
murders
したものだっ
herself.
たの。ファンタズムの歌詞
She
の
did
通
them
りに
exactly the
事
way
件
we
を起こし
described
た
her
の。
Phantasm's lyrics.
それによって
She wanted to
注
get
目
more
を浴び
attention
るた
for
め
her
に。
band.
それが私
That
の
was
推
my
理した
solution
ニュ
to
ージ
the
ェネ
New
事
Gen
件の
mystery.
真相。
I
さっ
decided
き
to share it
思い
with
切って岸本さ
Kishimoto
んの方
herself.
にぶつけてみたんだ。そしたら叩
And
かれ
then
ちゃった。
she slapped me. That's not funny. Anybody get mad if you accuse them of being a murderer with no evidence. No, but wait, Mimi hadn't gotten mad when I accused her of being the New Gen killer.
でも
But
私の
I'm
推理
sure
は
my
間違
theory
っ
is
てない
right,
はず。
though.
タク
Taku, you
気
need
を
to
つ
be
けてね。
careful.
岸本さんは
Kishimoto
異常だよ。
is crazy. I couldn't believe Mimi would say such a thing. I thought I misheard it.
私は正常
No,
よ。
totally normal.
え
Huh? I heard a clear voice call out. I looked and saw Yase standing at the entrance to the building, holding her D-sword.
すべては
And the
大
Great
いな
Will
る意
Guide
志の
saw.
導き。
She screamed, running at us with the blade.
おい
Hey, let's get out of here.
タク、
Taku,
どうしよ
what did we do?
どうしようって
Don't ask me.
う。グラジオールに。
Glory to
Hey,
Gladiel. There's clearly something wrong with Yase. She was heading closer and closer to us. Crap, I needed to run. I needed to run or she'd kill me. I was so panicked that I stumbled as I turned to flee. I landed face first on the ground. Taku!
諦めろリミ
Forget him, Mimi! The two of them fled, leaving me behind. I reached out toward them as they got smaller and smaller in my vision.
待って置いてい
Wait,
かないで
don't leave me!
死ね
Die! I turned around just in time to see Yase standing above me, holding the D-sword high above her head. Hey, Taku. Earth to Taku. Let's go. Yasumi was calling me. Mimi was standing next to him, waving. I blinked to look around me. There was no sign of Ayase. It wasn't hurt. It hadn't been stabbed. Ew. It was a delusion. I thought she'd killed me. I never wanted to see Ayase like that in real life.
タク
Taku, hurry up! I quickly chased after them. The three of us walked side by side throughout the outpatient lobby, reading. This part of the hospital had evidently closed for the day, because there were only a few people there. There were, however, around 10 people gathered around the big LCD TV in the corner.
何かな。
What's going on, I wonder?
また新
Another
しいニュ
new
ージェネ
gen
でも
murder,
起きたんじゃ
maybe?
ね
Misumi whispered. I froze, but Rimi. She quietly gripped my hand. The warm feeling kept me from being any more scared. I could feel the tension in my heart melt away. Rimi was my support. Rimi gave me safety. Rimi would stay with me. Maybe I was being a little too optimistic, but having her by my side kept the terror just barely manageable. I was so glad she was here.
なあ
Hey,
二人とも来て
guys,
みろよ
come here. Yasumi had gone over to the TV and was beckoning to the two of us. The others, patients young and old, and even the nurses, were all glued to the screen. What was going on?
行ってみよ
Let's go see. Rumi pulled me by my hand until we were close enough to see the TV. Nervously, I looked at it. When I saw what the text on the screen said, I was stunned. Oh. It was news about the arrest of the new. I didn't need to do any of that. So why? Why did something feel so wrong? The idea that Shogun had just been stalking me is so kind of pranked and it's incredible. Maybe I only thought that way because my sense of what was normal had been numbed for the past month. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It set on vibrate like I was supposed to, but I still couldn't take a phone call in a hospital. I let go of Amy's hand and headed out the front door. I answered the phone.
Hi.
Hello? Who's there? I tensed up. Maybe it was the Torianse song again. I checked the name on the phone. But it was unlisted. I got a bad feeling I went to hang up, but... Brother... The voice on the other end was in terrible pain, but it was, without doubt, Nanami's voice. Nanami. Give back. My right hand. Well. Also, well. The Gouda Froggy specialty shop was called the Todali Froggy. Someone, at some point, must have thought it was a funny pun, but all it could elicit from Bond was a tired sigh. There were 20 Totally Froggy stores all across the city, and they were supposedly building more. The one in Harajuku was the first one that had been built, and so it was a mecca for Ghetto Froggy fans. That was the one Bon had decided to visit, and he was quickly regretting it. Hey,
なあ
Yua,
ゆあちゃん
can I go home?
帰っていいか
He whispered to Yua, who had accompanied him to the store and showed him where it was.
え、
Huh?
でも
But
百瀬
didn't
さんから
Momose tell
ゲ
us
ロ
we
カエル
needed
を
to
買ってく
buy
るように
Ghetto
頼まれてる
Froggy?
んじゃ。
だってよ
I mean,
おじ
this
さんだけ
clearly
明
isn't a
ら
place
か
for a
に
guy
似てるから
my
さ
age. It was right on Takashita Street, and there were countless young people walking outside, having fun and talking to each other. Most of them were completely ignoring the shop. The inside was small, and mostly devoid of people. There were only about 5 people there, including Bon and Yua, and all of them but Bon were teenage girls. The guy that looked like Bon walking down Takashita Street with a teenage girl like Yua probably seemed like he was buying sex. And now here he was, buying her the mascot character that all the kids loved. What a perfectly stereotypical old pervert he was. Bon felt depressed. And
なんか
it feels like
誰かに見られて
somebody's
るような
watching
気が
us.
するんだよなうんいい年して
Maybe I'm
自意
just
識
getting
過剰かもしん
self-conscious in
ね
my
え
old
な
age.
あ、それ
Oh, me
私も
too.
です。最近
It
誰か
feels
の
like
視線を
somebody's
感じ
watching
て
me lately. I get
たま
really
に
scared.
すごく怖くなるんですよ。
なん
No,
俺だけじゃ
so
な
it's
か
not
った
just
か
me.
ゆあちゃんの
In
場合は
your case,
心
that's
配だ
pretty
な
worrying.
スト
If
ー
you
カー
got
に
a
つけ狙われ
stalker.
てたりしたら
そんな
Hey,
怖いこ
don't
と言わ
scare
ない
me
でく
like
ださい。
that.
ねえ安心して
Don't worry.
そんな奴がいた
Even
ら
if you
俺
do,
が
I'll
逮捕し
arrest
てや
him
る
for you. Bon grinned, then turned to look at the Ghetto Froggy items on the shelf.
ところでゆあ
By
ちゃ
the
んは
way,
ここに来る
how
のは
many times have
何度
you
目だ
been here?
わ、
Th-
私も
This is my first
初め
time,
てです
too.
あんまり
It
客がい
doesn't
ね
seem
え
to
よ
be
うだな
that busy.
静か
I
な
guess
ブ
it's
ームって
popular
やつ
in
な
a
のか
really quiet way.
金曜日から
Supposedly it
日曜
gets
日に
really
かけて
busy
は
between
すごく
Friday and
混んでるらしい
Sunday.
です。あ、
Um,
つまりそ
I
の
mean,
新
just on
作
the
が発売され
weekends,
て
when a
週
new
末
one comes
の
out,
間だけですね。特に金曜日は
especially on
もの
Friday.
すごく並
They
ぶ
say
ら
the
し
lines
くて
are huge.
学生のために
And they open at
18
6
時に販
p.m.
売開始
so
なん
that
ですけど、
students can come.
噂だと
And I heard people
そ
say
の
the
行
line
列だけ
fills
で
up all of
竹下通りが埋め尽く
Takashita
され
Street
るとか。
週末だ
just on the
け
weekends, huh?
まあす
That's even more
ます
suspicious. Bon decided to grab 2 of the last week's frog, teary-eyed Ghetto Froggy, and take them to the register. Yua seemed to have decided not to buy any for herself. She simply followed behind him. Yo! The clerk was a rather dim-looking 20-something man with his hair dyed green. He even had pierced ears. If he wasn't at the register, it would have been hard to believe he even worked in a store. He certainly didn't seem like the customer service type. The clerk was openly gawking at Yua and Bon. A present for your daughter?
ええ
Yeah,
そうなんだよね
that's right.
はあこの子がどう
She
して
really
もって
wanted
言う
one.
からまあたま
And
に
you
は
know, I
父親
figured
ら
it
しいこ
wouldn't
と
kill
や
me
らん
to
と
act
ね
like a dad once in a while. Bon gave the clerk a friendly, awkward-looking grin. Yua had a surprised look on her face and quickly turned her head down. But Bon ignored her and continued to play the role of dad.
それより
So
この
anyway,
カエルに
I'm
興味ある
curious
んだ
about
け
these
ど
frogs.
ちょっと
Can you tell me a
話聞
little
かせて
about
もらっ
them?
ていいかなゲコカエルンっ
Are there
て
gecko
そんな
frogs
に
that
人気あるの
are these Greco frogs that popular?
っていうかゲロ
Ghetto, not
バンバ
gecko.
ン人気あ
They
って
come out and they
やば
just
いっす
fly off the shelves like bang bang.
ああゲコ
Ah,
カエルン
yeah.
ね
Gap
いつも
Froggo.
週
Got
末に
it.
新作が出る
Now
んで
the
し
new
ょ
editions come out on the weekends.
ゲロカエルんだって言っ
Dude,
てんじゃん
Ghetto Froggy. Get it right.
っていうか
I'm like,
新作と
don't
か
call
そ
them
ういう
new
言い方マジやめてよ
We always
新
call
ガエ
them
ルだ
new
から
frogs.
金土日
On
と超
Friday,
並ん
Saturday,
で
and
バンバン
Sunday.
売れるん
They go
で
flying
マ
off
ジ
the
やばいっすよ
shelves. Seriously
マジでバン
crazy.
バン売れるっすか
Like
ら
off the shelves like bang bang.
バンバンっすよマジで
Seriously, bang bang. Yua suddenly narrowed her eyes. Something in the way he was saying bang so many times felt strange. Why did he keep emphasizing it? It probably wasn't deliberate, but it felt like he was using it as an excuse to say Bond's name over and over again, and in a really rude way, too.
これメイド
They
インチャイ
say
ナって
made
ラ
in
ベルに書
China
いて
on
あ
the
るだけなんだ
label.
けど
Do you know
メ
who
ー
the
カーとかわか
manufacturer
る
is?
はメーカー
Huh? Manufacturer?
つうかゲロカエル
Look,
にブラ
Ghetto
ンドとかね
Froggies don't
え
have
し
a brand.
ゲロガエ
Ghetto
ルはゲ
Froggies are
ロガエ
Ghetto
ルんじゃね
Froggies.
それで
That's
完
good
結
enough,
してね
right?
おっさん待ち受
You're
けんだ
funny,
ろ
old man.
教えとくと
So look,
ゲロガエ
Ghetto
ルって
Froggies
作っ
aren't
てんじゃ
made.
ねえから
They're born.
マジバン
Like
バン生ま
Bang
れてっ
Bang.
から
Okay.
うーん
I agree with Bond on that sound. Bond felt like blah 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 blah. Bond felt like was about to. Okay, it was just the English, not me this time. Let's try that again. Bond felt like was about. Taku,
ほら
you
前
need to
見て
look
歩
where
かな
you're
いと
walking.
転んじゃう
You'll
よ
trip. With Rimi's help, I made it up to the roof. Oh boy.
どうしたの
What's wrong?
これから 実家に
I'm
帰
thinking
っ
of
てみよ
going
うと
back to my
思うんだ
parents' house.
これから
Right now?
急だね
Not sudden.
歩いても
It's
30
less
分も
than
かからない
30
ところな
minutes
んだ
away.
それで
And,
その一緒に
I want
つい
you
てきて
to go
ほし
with
い
me. I felt so nervous as I asked her that I thought my heart would burst out of my chest. I was a little surprised that I was able to get the words out. I've never been able to ask anyone for anything before. Oh boy.
嫌だよ
No. Rumi rejected my offer.
私
I don't want to
行き
go.
たくない
I never thought she'd refuse. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rumi had always done whatever I'd wanted. She'd always been there to help me. She'd always been there to support me. So I thought she'd say yes to whatever I asked. But I realize now that I was silly for thinking she'd always say yes. I've been arrogant. I treated her like a tool.
そう
I see.
それに
And Mimi turned away from me, strapped her arms tight around her body.
それに
You shouldn't
Takumo.
go back either.
行かない方がいい。
それって
What
ど
do
うい
you
う
mean?
実家には戻ら
Don't
ない
go home. Her voice was clear and hesitating, like she was giving me an order. I didn't understand. I didn't know what would make her say that. What look was on her face right now? I didn't understand.
わけがわ
I
から
don't
ない
understand.
あなたは
You don't need to know
何
anything.
も知らなくていい。
There was a tension in her voice, a sense of urgency. She was like a totally different person than she'd been before.
ここで
Just stay
こ
here
のコンテナハウ
in
ス
your
だけで
room.
ずっと生きていけばいい
Forever.
の。そうしてもらわないと
I need you to
困るん
do
だ。
that. She needed me to do that. Wait, this is a delusion, right? Right? And suddenly, a high-pitched sound stabs my ears. It was like a girl's scream. The wind blew hard. The air shook around me. The crimson light blinded me. I turned toward the source of the light, unsure what was going on. There, on top of the shipping crate, I looked up. And saw Sana Aoi holding her D-sword in her hand. The light was coming from the flashing D-sword, but something was strange. The last time I saw it, Sana's D-sword had been flashing with a blue light. The sound quickly disappeared. The wind stopped.
答える
Answer me. Her voice was sharp. Her gaze was cold. I could see murder in her eyes.
これを書いたのは
Were you the one who
Oh my
wrote
God.
this? She was holding the essay with the IR2 equation scribbled on the back. It was all wrinkled, like someone had crumpled it up. Why would Senna have that? Why would she even be here? The words breaking and entering came into my mind, and I realized that she'd been in my room. But why?
答えろと言って
I
いる
told you to answer me.
そうだけど
Yes, but...
だから
So what? Takumi! And that was Kozuki's voice. She was behind Senna's back. She was going into Senna's leg, poking her head out at me. Her expression was incredibly tense. Run! Huh? Just as Kozuki shouted, Senna jumped. She raised the sword. Watch out! Yumi yanked me hard, and I fell backwards. I looked up the place where I had just been standing. Senna's sword had torn a chunk out of the ground. Its sharpness and destructive power were almost unreal. The impact had been enough to shatter concrete, but the blade was unharmed. I thought the D-swords were supposed to be invincible, and you couldn't even touch them. Then I remembered what I heard before. The sword must have been rebooted. The four of us here had a shared awareness of Senna's D-sword. It wasn't a delusion anymore. It was real. It was a huge sword with the power to cut someone in half. If Rimi hadn't pulled me back, the beautiful blade would have sliced into me head first, and I would have died instantly. My whole body started to shake. Senna had just tried to kill me. Why? My mind was filled with questions. Not too long ago, she, Kozuki, and I had been eating gare-gare-kun popsicles together. They certainly weren't close enough that I could call her a friend, and she'd still scared me. But it certainly didn't feel like she was going to attack me on the sight with a D-sword.
殺して
I'm going to kill you. Senna looked up, glaring at me. She moved fast, even though she was carrying a huge weapon. She got into a crouch like a sprinter at the starting point and began to run. The tip of the blade tore into the ground as she got closer and closer. When she was close enough, she raised it high above her head. Instincts told me in an instant what was going on. She was serious. Senna was serious. I was lying on the ground, staring up, helpless and pathetic. I screamed. I couldn't escape. This was just so unfair. So sudden. How could it suddenly be game over like this? All that time I'd spent running away from Shogun. Now I died to a surprise attack from Senna. No. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And then, someone left between us, standing between me and Senna. I realized it was Rimi, just standing between me and Senna, with her arms spread out wide to block her path. Was she putting herself in danger to protect me? Move. Rimi, don't die. I don't want that. You should be careful around Sakihata. Suddenly. Or what Kozupi had said before. The light began to pour out from between Rimi's spread arms. I don't really understand her, NoAH. Rimi. Leave Taku alone. Brought her hands together around the streaming rays of light. They are shipping on us. Shining feathers of light appeared from out of nowhere and began to dance around Rimi. And in her hands I saw... What? Senna brought her huge D-sword down with full force, but she easily blocked it. Don't push him any closer to the edge. The thing in her hands was far too elegant, far too holy to be called a sword. It was like the wings of an angel. And then I understood. She, Mimi Sakihata, was also a gigomaniac. Ooh. Ooh, I like her. Stop. Can I have some of those? Senna Aoi was looking at her in sheer astonishment. The winged sword that had so easily blocked her weapon was clearly a D-sword. And if she hadn't used it many times before, she wouldn't have been able to block Senna's attack so easily. But yeah. Sakihata was a gigomaniac too, NoAH. Kozuwe was looking down at them from on top of the shipping container, as if she was a spectator watching a game. Her legs were dangling off the side. Senna was more than a little annoyed at her behavior, considering how she just ruined her surprise attack. But her gaze was locked to her front, on Rimi. Rimi's expression was pained. Takumi Nishija was lying on the ground behind her, moaning in shock. Senna was only after him. She wasn't here to fight Rimi. This wasn't a manga or anime. It wasn't realistic at all to try and fight someone with a D-sword. Do you know what that man did? IR2 formula was his. I know. She cut Senna off. Her answer was calm and sad, but clearly spoken. When she heard this, Senna's grip on her blade tightened even further. Then, he awakened Taku. Something even worse will happen. I'll kill him before that happens. You can't. Senna decided it wasn't worth trying to talk anymore. She brought her weapon lower, trying to strike with it. Rimi, however, was simply standing there. With long strides, she could be there in 5 steps. 3 seconds would be all it took. Senna didn't hesitate. She strode straight at Rimi. She slashed with her D-sword. Rimi tried to block it just as she did before, but... Senna's attack was a feint. The blade passed through Rimi's sword and her body. She canceled the real boyo. Right now, Senna's D-sword was just a delusion. It couldn't touch anything. It couldn't cut anything. It couldn't kill anyone. But that was just what Senna wanted. Amy had been ready to block the blade, and she was caught off guard for an instant. By the time she figured out what had happened, Senna already slipped past her, and was just about 2 steps away from Takumi. Once again, what to do another will do. Now. Takumi's terror-stricken eyes were pointed straight at Senna, who made the real boot easy. The D-sword, now real again, was only inches from piercing Takumi's heart.
Senna.
She saw someone in the corner of her vision. When she heard the voice, it stirred violent emotions within her. Her aim missed. And the blade only grazed Takumi's leg before slamming into the concrete next to him. Senna slowly looked up. You... and gasped. A man was standing at the edge of the roof, the sun setting behind him, his countenance like a ghost. His face was pale and ashen. His eyes were bloodshot and sunk deep into his head. His head was slumped forward and expressionless. When she saw him, Senna stopped caring about Takumi at all. It was the man Senna had chased for so long, the man she hated. The man who abandoned her and betrayed her family. And now he was right in front of her. I finally found you. Senna took a step toward him. She gritted her teeth to keep the hate welling up within her from taking control. She readied her D-sword again. She took another step. I didn't have a choice. I had to offer up your mother as a sacrifice. It was the only thing I could do. Shut up. Your mother's son was a very peaceful one, so Senna, don't worry. Thanks to your mother, the experiment was a huge success. Her sacrifice helped the whole world. You can be proud of what she accomplished. Shut up! The blood rushed to Senna's head. The man was now all she could see. She ran. She got there in an instant. Senna closed the distance between them in the blink of an eye, and when she was close enough, stabbed the D-sword deep into his body. This had been Senna's most fervent wish. She'd spent every day wandering Shibuya, just so she could someday kill him. She dreamed of killing him almost every night. I think finally got revenge for Mom. She tried to pull out the sword. She tried to back away from him. But the sword wouldn't come out. The man fell forward and embraced her. Get off me! Don't touch me! All the hairs on her body stood up in revulsion. It was far too late for this. The bond between Senna and her father had long since been cut. But for some reason, she was shocked to find that she couldn't push him away. His warmth, his big, broad chest. The reality of having her father here, right in front of her. Senna's hands were turning red. This isn't... This is the illusion you desire. She heard whispering, and then she knew. Error slipped into dead spots. Psychic attacks. Illusions. Her delusions had been read. By the time she realized what had happened, it was too late. She lost her balance, and both her and the man fell off the edge of the roof. Oh. The ground, 8 stories beneath her, seemed so far away. All I could do was watch without understanding at all what was going on. Senna suddenly ran toward the edge of the roof, and then, For no reason, lost her balance and began to fall. Her body was just about to disappear off the edge.
落ちる
Just going to fall. All I could do was whisper. I closed my eyes tightly. Suicide. Someone was going to kill herself by throwing herself off the roof. I didn't know why. I didn't want to know. She attacked me for no reason, and now she'd been punished. She turned out to be an enemy too. But no matter how much I waited, I didn't hear the sound of her hitting the ground. Nervously, I opened my eyes to see what was going on. Senna hadn't fallen. She was slumped over. And Remy was right next to her. Remy was holding onto her arm. Had Remy saved her? Senna had thrown away her D-sword and was crying like a little girl. What had just happened? As near as I could tell, Senna had just tried to kill herself.
辛い思いさせて
I'm sorry for making you suffer,
でも
but
しょう
I
がな
had
かったの
to. What had Remy done to Senna? She was like a totally different person than the cheerful Remy I knew. Her face was pained. Her voice was sad. There were tears in her eyes. The girl in front of me wasn't the Remy I knew. Sakihata! I heard a voice in my mind. Kazuki was still watching us from on top of the shipping crate.
もう終了
You're done, right?
もしも
If you're still going to go to the Swamp Kapow with
しよ
Senna,
うとしてるならカズピ
Kazuki will stop you.
崎畑さんのこと
He'll take your body
バラバラにしちゃうよ
and slice it apart. A cold chill ran down my spine. Kazuki was still using her cheerful anime voice, but I could tell she was serious. Yeah,
もう
we're
終わ
done.
りもともと
I
葵さん
didn't
のこと
intend to hurt
ど
her
うこうす
anyway.
るつもりはないしタクの前から消え
If
て
she's
くれる
willing
な
to leave Taku
こ
alone,
のまま会
I'll
話を
let
す
her
る
go.
それはそれ
That's impossible.
だって
Cause Kazuki and Senna are both friends with Takumi now.
お友達だもんね
Right?
そうでし
Right?
ょタクミちゃん
Right? Takumi? You gotta think about anything. If you told me everything that just happened was a dream, I'm sure I would have believed it. I had Senna attacked me anyway. Was Senna my enemy after all? It's your fault. Senna looked up at me, her face filled with tears. She was still slumped over, and she hadn't even tried to wipe away the tears. She was staring at me with anger in her eyes.
お前のせいで
It's your fault, my
私の家族
family.
は
I was confused. I could feel her raw emotions. But what had I done? I never bothered anybody. I didn't even know Senna's family. I was completely harmless.
無害だと
Harmless? She read my mind.
お前が生み出したものが
The thing you created might
世
destroy
界
the
を滅ぼすかも
world.
しれないっていうのに
Destroy our world? Was she just another crazy person who read too much manga? I turned to Remy for help, but Remy had her back to me and was looking out toward the evening sky.
無駄だよ
You're wasting your time. The way she looked, her voice. Was it just me, or did she seem so very, very sad?
タクは
Taku
何
doesn't
も知
know
らないから
anything. But it sounded like Remy knew everything.
ふざけるな
Shut up!
今渋谷を襲っている
Everything
混乱
that's
は
happened in Shibuya right now is because of that formula. Formula.
それ以上言わないで
Don't say another word.
タクは
He really doesn't know
本当に
anything.
何も知らないの
It felt like they were talking about me, but I couldn't follow the conversation at all.
公式って
Do you mean this
これの
formula?
こと
Kazuki came down from her perch on the shipping crate, carrying my essay. On the back of it, with the scribbles I'd done as a boy. IR2. This is the cause of everything was happening in Shibuya. Ridiculous. How could a bunch of scribblings on paper have that kind of power? I just drawn them to kill some time, I think. It was so long ago, I couldn't really remember, but they didn't mean anything at all. I just written down the numbers I'd seen in my dream. It was a dream that had something to do with the subject of my essay. Whose eyes are those? I'd used that phrase for a long time, and then one day, I started to see it more and more clearly in my dreams. In those dreams, I'd seen the numbers.
FUN の10乗
FUN, the 10th power,
INT
times
の
INT
40 乗
to the 40th power,
イコール
equals IR2.
IR2
Senna finally wiped away her tears. Her eyes were red. She kept talking, still slumped on the ground, looking at me with anger and frustration in her eyes.
この公式をお前が生み
The
出した
second
瞬
you created this formula, the
世
world
界は
split.
分岐したんだ
Mullen.
ノア2に搭
The
載さ
most
れている中で
sophisticated
最も
aspect
秀
of
でてい
NoAH
るの
2
は
is the formula
中核
that's
システムに組み
integrated
込まれ
into
た
its central
とある
system.
方程式です。
Yes.
これは人類史上
This formula,
未だ
it
回
said,
答
has
が
never
見つかってい
solved
ないとされているもの。
has never been solved at any point in human history.
ミレニアム7のうちの
One of the
一つか
Millennium 7?
億単位の懸賞
The
金
seven
がかけられ
unsolved
ていると
mathematics
いう
problems with
数
$1
学
million
界で未だ
prizes
未
being
解決
offered
の
for their
7つの
solutions.
問題か
Math people are built different, yeah, for real.
いいえ、
No.
その7
It's
つ
not
の
one
中に
of
は
the
入ってい
seven.
ません。ですが、
There were,
実は
however,
ミレニアム7
originally
は
8 problems
もともと
included in
問
the
題が
Millennium
8つあった。
series. One was removed
公
before
開
the
前に
prize was
一つだけ
announced.
削除されたのです。
それが
And that's the one
ノア
NoAH
2に組み
2
込まれている
incorporates
方
into
程
its
式だと
system.
削除された理
Why
由
was it
は
removed?
世界に最悪をま
Because it
き
had the
散らす可
potential
能
to
性
spread
がある
misery and
ため
disaster throughout
とい
the
うところ
world.
です。
I mean, it is a math problem, so believable.
一体どのよ
What
う
kind
な
of
数
formula
式
can
な
do
のか
something like that?
基本相互作用
The
におけ
formula
る電
describes
磁
the
気
type
力を
of
想定
resonance
した共鳴
phenomenon
現象
that。occurs during the fundamental
それを
interactions of
表す計算式
electromagnetic
です。
forces.
これにより、
It
特定
revealed
の
the
電磁パ
existence
ルス
of
と
an
受容
unknown
体と
power
が
that
近
manifests
接作
during
用すること
proximate
で
action
発
between
現
a
する
specific
未知の
electromagnetic
力が
pulse
解
and a
明されました。
receiver.
各国が30
The
年以上
research
か
into
けて開
silent
発し
weapons
積み上
that
げて
every
きた
nation in the world
沈
built
黙
up
の
over
兵器
the
の研
course
究
of
成
3
果を
decades
一
was
瞬
instantly
にして
rendered
過去のもの
obsolete.
としてしまったんですよ。
その問題に回答を
Finding
見
the
つけた
solution to the
者
problem
は
would make one equal to
神に
God.
なるに等しいというわけだ。それを君が果たした
And
と
you've
いうわ
solved
け
it.
かね。
それはとても不
He
思議な
was
場所か
found
ら
in a
見つかり
very,
ました。
very strange place.
子供の
In a
落書
child's
きという
scribblings.
ね。IR2
IR2.
ノア2の
The
いわゆ
so-called
るハードウ
hardware
ェア部
aspect
分
of
は
NoAH
こ
2
の公
derives
式によ
from
っ
its
て
godlike
神
powers
に
from
匹
this
敵する能
formula.
力を手に入れました。あとは
All
ソフ
that's
トウェア
necessary
部
now
分に
is to
相
get
当
the
する
code
ギガ
samples
ロ
from
マ
the
ニアックスのコード
Gigglomaniacs
サン
that
プル
form
を
the
集めれ
software
ば
aspect.
ノア2は
The
本
NoAH
格的
2
に
will
稼働し
begin full
我々
operation
の望むもの
and give
全
us
てを
everything good we
実現
want.
して
かのアインシュタインが現代に
Sometimes I
生き
wish
ていればと
Einstein
思
was still
う。
alive.
彼は
I
高
hear
い
he
能
was a
力を持つ
powerful
ギガロマニアッ
gigglomaniac.
クスだったと聞く。家庭の話
They're
よ
more
り
interested in
現状が
reality
どう
than
なっているかだ。
hypotheticals.
ギガロマニアックス
They
は
say there were
世
only a
界
few
中に数える
gigglomaniacs in
ほ
the
どしか
entire
いないと
world.
いうではないか。
Can we find enough?
大丈夫なのか。
すでに5人分のサンプ
We
ルは
have
確
5
保し
samples
ました。
already.
ノア2稼働に十
We have
分な
enough to
数が
activate
集まったよ
NoAH
う
2 then.
だね。ならば結構。
Good.
ただ
But the
サ
more
ンプル
samples
が
we
多
have,
ければ
the
多
more
いほ
powerful
ど
it becomes.
ノア2の能力は向上します。特に
And there's one boy
どうしても
gigglomaniac
サン
who
プ
is
ルを採取
particularly
したいギガロ
interesting,
マニ
you
アック
see.
スの少年が一人いましてね。
だからといって計
It's
画
not
の
good enough
遅
reason
延は
to
許され
delay
ん
the
ぞ。
plan.
ノア2の本格稼働は
When
い
will
つ
full
頃になり
operation
そうなの
NoAH
か。
2begin?
稼働前に最終
As
実
a
験
final
と
test
して
before activation,
サードメルト
I'm
を
going
行
to
います
initiate a third melt.
また地震を起こ
Another
そうと
earthquake?
予測規模
How big are we talking?
想定では
Equal in size to the
関
Great
東大
Kanto
震災と
earthquake.
同レベル。
関東
The
大
Great
震災クラ
Kanto
スだと
earthquake?
マグニチュード
That was,
7.9
I believe, magnitude
だったかな。
7.9.
現在の建築基準と
Building codes and
免震対
seismic
策レベルを考
isolation
えれ
technology
ば
have come a long way
町に
since
かつて
then.
ほどの大き
It
な
will cause
損
the
害を
same
及
level
ぼす
of
ことはないで
damage.
しょう。
だが
But
犠
the number
牲
of
者の数
casualties
は
will
フ
be
ァースト
vastly
セカ
greater
ンド
than
の
the
比で
first or
はなか
second
ろう。
months, right?
およそ5000人ほ
I'm
どといったと
estimating
こ
at
ろで
around
す。
5,000.
少なく見積もっ
In a minimum,
ですね。
that is. Is that a
問題が。
problem?
責任は貴
You'll
様
take
が取るのだ
responsibility
ろ
for
うな。
this, right?
腹でも切って
Do you
死
want
ん
me
で
to
みせま
commit
す。
seppuku right in front of you?
これが最終実
This will
験
be
で
our
す。
final experiment.
サードメルトが予定通り
When
の
the third
成
melt
果を上げたとき、
performs as expected,
ノア
will be
2
fully complete,
完全なる完成を見る。世界の可能
and
性
all the
は
world's possibilities will be ours.
我らの手の中に。
Well then.
この公式をお前が生
In
み
the
出した
second
し
you created this formula, the
世
world
界は
split.
分岐したんだ。
分岐って
Split. Wait, this isn't an H game.
タク、
Taku,
もう行こう。
let's go.
話
You
聞
don't
く
need
必
to
要
hear
なんてないよ
this. Yumi grabbed me by the hand and tried to pull me into the room. I could sense her desperation. She was afraid of something.
葵さんが言ってることは
Everything
全部
Zoe's saying
嘘
is
っ
a
ぱちだ
lie.
し、
嘘はそっちだろ。
You're the liar.
葵さんもう帰っ
Howie,
て。
just leave.
タクの前から
Leave
消えて
Taku
よ。
alone. What was I supposed to believe?
たかが数
How
式
could a
になんで
math
そんなに
formula
目くじら
be
立
so
てるんだよ。
本当に何も分か
You
ってな
really
い
don't
の。
know anything?
アインシュタインが唱えた
Einstein created the
E equals
equation
MC
E
の
equals
事情。
MC squared.
これが発
In
表
the
さ
same
れ
way
たこと
that
で
equation
核
created
兵
a
器が開
future where
発される
nuclear
という
weapons
未来
were
が生まれ
real.
たように、お前の生み出した
Your
IR2 も
invention
ま
of
た
IR2 will have
E
the same
イコール
effect.
MC の事情
No,
と同
an
じ
even greater effect on the world.
それ以上の影響力を世界に与えている。IR2
IR2 makes the
沈黙の
silent
兵器を現
weapons
実のものとした
possible.
沈
The
黙の兵
silent
器
weapons?
思考盗撮
Mind
視
reading,
覚投影
induced
五感制御
hallucinations, sensory control. Those were the technologies that Son had told me about before. The ones in the patent.
ギガロマニアックスは特別
Gigalomaniacs will cease to be special. No,
異常では
cease to
な
be
くなる。 これからはこの忌々
These
ましい
terrible
力を
powers will now
誰もが
be
自由に
usable
使え
by
るようになるん
everyone.
だ。
All you'll need is a device
IR2 を
that
元に
IR2
作られ
makes
た装置によっ
possible.
てな。もっとも
Of course.
その前に
Before
一
that
握りの
happens,
腐った連中
some
に
of the
独占
world's
され、
risk
人
will
々も気づかないう
monopolize the
うち
power
に
for
家
themselves
畜同然の
and
立場に
brainwash
な
the
るよう
rest of
洗
us
脳され
until
てし
we're
まうだろ
little
うが。
more than cattle. I didn't know anything about any of this. I had no idea. Even if what Seta said was true, I never meant to make anything like that. It was just a kid scribbling on a paper. You hadn't done anything wrong. Wow.
それなら
But then, yes, I am too.
は
IR2
IR2.
そ
He
れは
explains exactly how the Gigalomaniac's power works.
キュッピーンって説明したものなんだ。やっぱり
So what
あ
that
のお
guy
じさん
said
が
was
言っ
right.
てたのは本当だったのら。一番
The
重要なの
most
は
important person was the boy who invited whose eyes are those.
生み出した少年なんだって。それってたくみちゃ
He
んの
meant
ことだったん
Takumi.
だね。
Kuzupi's voice was cheerful, but it wasn't as innocent and pure as she was. Mimi said nothing. But Senna, her eyes wide, suddenly looked up and staggered to her feet. Why did she seem like she was having trouble walking? Was it because of whatever Rimi had done to her?
小杖
Kazue,
お前
what did you say?
今なんて言った？
ホピ
Yuppie? Senna began to storm towards toward a stunned Kozubi.
おじしゃんって
What
誰の
man?
ことだ？
ほんとね、
The one who told
理
Kozuki
想
how
度の
important
大
the
切
D
さを教え
swords
てくれ
were.
た人。東京に来て
The first
初
person
め
I
て話
talked
し
to
た人
since
な
coming
の。
to Tokyo.
なんかね、
He had a weird sign
うぎゅーって
and a
鼻つまみ
look
た
that
くな
kind
っ
of
ちゃう
made your
格好
nose
して
go,
て、
ew.
へんてこなこと書いた板持ってたの。世界
It said,
は
the
終わ
end
る
is near,
と
or
かと
something.
か。
Or something.
なんで
Why didn't you tell
そ
me
れを
about this
早く言わな
earlier?
かった
Yeah,
そん
I
なこと
didn't
言
know
わ
it
れ
was
ても。
important.
あいつだ。
That's him.
やっと
I finally
見
found
つけ
him.
た。
Neither me, nor Remy, nor Kozuki had any idea what she was talking about. All we could do was watch as an intense fury descended on her.
私は
I could finally
やっと
kill him.
あいつを殺せる。
An experiment had been performed, but she never knew. She was a normal housewife, close to turning 40, newly pregnant with her second child. No, maybe she wasn't quite normal. Her first daughter was already a year away from high school, so there would be an almost 15-year gap between her children. She was so worried that her daughter, who was currently going through puberty, would rebel against having a younger sister. But in fact, her daughter was overjoyed. Her husband was a scientist, and between his faith and his research, only rarely came home. Whenever he was home, he did his best to be a good father and a good husband. So, while she certainly had her complaints, her love for her husband was firm. The second child was born uneventfully. She was a healthy young girl who weighed 2,579 grams at birth. She named the girl Mana. Unfortunately, after that, her husband was transferred to a new location far away from home. Her husband wouldn't last a week without someone to do the chores and make the food, so she had no choice but to send her older daughter along with him. She was now alone with her newborn daughter, Mana. At her husband's suggestion, the two of them moved into the housing owned by the company he worked for, so rent was extremely low. Her family had originally lived in a condo in the suburbs, but it was far from the city center and hard to get anywhere. The dorm, however, was located right in the heart of Shibuya, and many of her husband's colleagues lived nearby. She'd have easy access to childcare, and if anything came up, she'd have people around who could help her. The place was extremely spacious. The bedroom, especially, was a favorite of hers. A huge mirror covered a whole wall, and on the other side, there was a big window. From there, you could look down at Yoyogi Park. She quickly became friends with the ladies in the nearby residences, and the corporate benefits even included a maid. She was proud that her husband was important enough in the company for her to have all these benefits, and was more than satisfied with her life of luxury. 2 years passed. Mana's development was a little slow, but she was growing up without suffering any major illnesses. She was, however, a very needy child. If she wasn't constantly held at her mother's breast, she'd start crying immediately. For the past month or so, Mana's mother hadn't been feeling well at all. The ringing in her ears was the worst part. It bothered her almost the whole day. But still, she couldn't let the maid or the lady next door take care of Mana. Mana couldn't stand to be away from her for a second. Not in the bathroom, not when taking a bath. Whenever she even thought of letting the maid hold her for a second, Mana would somehow know and start crying. It was, in a way, endearing to have the young child so reliant on her. It also meant that she couldn't leave the house for an instant. The maid and her neighbor, though, were there to help. She was so lucky to have met them. And of course, things were gradually getting strange with them, too. A week ago, she'd been talking to her neighbor in the living room, when the woman had suddenly started to vomit without warning. She quickly fled afterward, running outside of the house. Mana's mother hadn't seen the neighbor at all after that, so perhaps she'd gotten sick. Mana's mother then decided to ask her maid to go check on the neighbor. The maid was just finishing up for the day when she made the request. When she finished it with, "And I'll see you tomorrow," the maid suddenly began to cry. The maid just nodded over and over again before leaving. And that night, Mana's mother suffered terribly as the ringing in her ears got even more violent than before, and the pain threatened to split her head open. She tried to call an ambulance, but the phones didn't work. She tried to get the neighbor lady to help, but even that was too difficult. Her daughter started to cry violently, and the crying made the pain worse. She held Mana tight to her chest, enduring the pain. Suddenly the crying and the ringing in her ears stopped. The pain in her head was gone, like it had never been there. She looked down and saw that she was holding the shriveled corpse of a child. Before she realized that the whole thing was an experiment, her mind broke into a million pieces. An experiment had been performed, but it wasn't what he had expected it to be. He was a scientist in Nozomi Technologies, and a believer in the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. He was one of the key figures behind Nozomi Tech's secret project NoAH, and the one who'd solved the riddle of the 1 to the power of 10 by int by the power of 40 equals IR2. He had offered his pregnant wife as a test subject for the experiment. It was a direct order from the church's leader, a person he admired deeply, but he had also been the one to suggest it, to make the experiment a success. It was called the Mana experiment, after the codename given to his wife's daughter. His older daughter was given to a church facility, while he monitored his sequestered wife and Mana 24 hours a day. What his wife had thought was a company-owned condo was, in fact, a Nozomi Technologies testing facility, and the location of the NoAH 2 prototype that he was working on. Mind reading, induced hallucinations, sensory control. His wife and daughter would be used to test the efficiency of these technologies here in the sealed lab. The effects of the electromagnetic radiation on the body were ill understood, and he had planned to cancel the experiments if anything unusual happened to his wife and daughter. An accident occurred almost immediately. Mana died roughly a month after being born. The cause of her death was unknown. It was an accident, one that nobody could prevent. He was deeply saddened and tried to cancel the experiment, but that wasn't going to happen. It's quite interesting, don't you think? That's what his employer had said. The man had been looking at the strange goings-on in the test lab. His wife had refused to accept the reality of her daughter's death, and treated her corpse like it was still alive. In fact, from his wife's perspective, she was. This is an effect of the NoAH 2 prototype, and in a sense, the perfect chance to test its abilities. His feelings on the matter were irrelevant. But before long, he too began to feel that his wife would be better off if the experiment continued. As he watched his wife through the one-way mirror, cradling his daughter's corpse, it seemed like she was happy with her life. She stared at the wallpaper on the opposite side, which looked to her like a window overlooking Yoyogi Park, and whispered softly to her daughter. 2 of the research staff took care of her. One would pretend to be a maid, the other, the lady next door. As long as the experiment continued, his wife's mind would be just fine. This was, he told himself, what was best for her. Perhaps his mind had broken before hers. And the more time passed, the more his goal changed from the completion of NoAH 2 to keeping his wife locked within her dream. And then, after almost 2 years, his employer's words suddenly brought all that to an end. We have enough data. NoAH 2 will begin full operation soon. There's no point in continuing this experiment. He fought back as hard as he could, but as a result, he was branded a traitor and removed from the project. As a final thanks for his service, he was allowed to be in the experiment room, hands tied, on the day it was shut down. His daughter, whom he hadn't seen for nearly 2 years, had been brought there as well. When she saw him, she seemed confused.
父さん
Dad,
これはどう
what's
いうこと
going on here?
母さんに何を
What did
し
he
た
do
の
to Mom?
母さんが抱いているのは
What is she holding?
一体
You couldn't answer. The guilt kept him from even looking her in the eye. The horrible ceremony was about to begin. The neighbor lady had already become unable to tolerate the stench, and the maid had run out of the lab weeping at his wife's words. The device was shut down. The dream ended, and his wife broke. At the sight of her daughter suddenly turning into a desiccated corpse, at least that's how it must have seemed to her, she snapped, tearing out her hair and ripping the skin off her face with her nails. She began to laugh, madly, slamming her face again and again into the walls, before grabbing a knife and killing herself by stabbing out her own eyes. Mom! Mom! Her daughter was screaming and crying as she watched her mother's last moments through the one-blind mirror. Mom! The lab staff grabbed his daughter by the arms and dragged her off somewhere. He didn't know where. He wasn't even allowed to follow the only family he had left. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So sorry. He blamed himself. It was all his fault. Whatever his reasons, when he opted to continue the experiment 2 years prior, it had been obvious that this was how it was going to end. Several days after watching his wife's death, he disappeared. Nobody knew where he was now. Sana ended up running off on her own, after angrily asking Kazupi some kind of question. Kazupi had gone after Sana. I had no idea what made her suddenly go crazy. I was suddenly trudging through Shimotokizawa. I was almost home. It wasn't even 30 minutes from the base. Was Nanami there? Shimotokizawa streets were busy, though not as busy as Shibuya. The psychic boy incident was still fresh in people's memories. Some would point and laugh at me, while others would even take pictures with their cell phones. I hurried home as fast as I could, suffering the feelings of embarrassment and humiliation.
ごめんね
I'm sorry. Mimi was walking a little behind me, her eyes locked on the ground below her as she whispered. She said that at least 10 times on the way here.
黙ってて
I'm sorry.
ごめん
Didn't tell you. There's something I could say. I didn't understand Rimi. That had always been the case. Rimi had been there to support me. She'd been there for me. But there was so much about her I didn't understand. Until now, I'd always opted to just ignore it. Maybe that was because it felt like if any of those things I didn't understand ever came out in the open, Mimi would go away. And I was afraid of that.
と
But
ど
why,
うして
why are you
僕と
staying with
一
me?
緒にいてくれるの
I managed to work up the courage to ask that single question. Why would Mimi want to be anywhere near a guy like me? Was it because she was like Yua and trying to set me up for a fall? But the answer wasn't what I expected.
あなたに
I
目覚めて
didn't
ほ
want
し
you
く
to
ないの
wake up.
普通の生活
I
を
wanted you to
送
live
ってほしかった
normally. She didn't want me to wake up to awaken as a Gigua maniac? Is that what she meant? Mimi knew more about me than I did myself.
一体
J-
君は
just
何
who
者なの
are you?
私は
Mimi hesitated.
私は
I'm your friend.
タクの友達だっ
I
て
think.
思ってる友達で
I want to be your
痛いな
friend. Did that mean She doesn't want to ask any more questions. Want me to ask any more questions, rather? I can read so good. But I had to ask.
僕はギガロマニアッ
Am
ク
I a
スなの。
giglomaniac? You
そうとも言え
could
る
say
し
that.
違うとも言え
But
る
you could also say you're not. Which was it? Was she trying to confuse me?
君は
Did-
IR2
Did you
の
know
こと
about
知ってたの？
IR2? I heard about it.
聞いたことがあるだけ
She didn't say who told her about it.
セナが言っ
Is
てた
what
のは
Senna said
本当な
true?
の？
嘘だよ
It's a lie. She was lying. She was lying when she said it was a lie. You could tell just by looking at her.
君は
Are you? I wanted to ask her another question but stopped. Is Jamie on my side or my enemy? If I asked and got the wrong answer, she might leave me forever, so I couldn't ask. If I just pretended nothing had happened, if I just let her lie to me, and everything could go back to how it was before, that'd be easier. I'd be happier that way, maybe. Yeah, I should just do that. I could pretend to be an idiot. I could just let her keep lying to me. She'd said to me enough times that she probably wasn't going to hurt me in the future. All I had to do was give her what she wanted and lead a normal life.
あ
Th-
ありが
Thank
と
you.
う。
I looked away from her and thanked her instead of asking her a question.
守って
For
くれて
protecting me.
だく
Taku. I couldn't think of anything else to say, so I just silently followed the path home. Soon, I came to a street I recognized. It was in a cramped, quiet neighborhood. Once in a while, you could hear the sound of the trains in the distance. I'd known this place since I was a little kid. This was where I'd grown up. I followed the same road to elementary school and to middle school. I just had to turn down the narrow street in front of me, and home would be right there. I was scared to face Nanami, but I had to see whether her arm was still attached. I stopped and took a deep breath to calm myself. Then I went to take a step forward when...
待って
Wait. I turned back to see her Nami was looking at me. She was on the verge of tears.
どうしても
Do you
行くの
really have to go?
ね
Please,
え行かないで
don't go.
もう
You'll never
普
have a
通じゃい
normal
られな
life
くなる
again.
よ私
I don't want that for you.
そんなの嫌だな
What did that mean?
帰ろう
Let's go back, okay?
あのコンテナハウスに
Back to your home. Up on the roof.
私
I'll stay
タ
with
クが
you
望む限
as
り
long as you
ずっと
want.
一緒にいるからそれで
And we can go to school
一緒に
together
学校
and
に行って
we can hang out with
大地と
Daichi
3人
and
で
on the
たわ
way
いもない
home we
話
can
をして
stop to get some
帰りに立ち食いそば
soba
屋さんと
noodles
か
or go to a
CD
CD
ショッ
shop
プ
or
とかに寄って
something.
そうやって
We could keep
こ
what
れ
we
から
have
もや
now
っていこうよ
forever.
僕は
I have to
ナナミに
see
会わなく
Nanami.
ちゃ。
いないよ
She's not
きっ
there.
と
I promise. How was she know? Was she lying again? Was there a reason she didn't want me to go to my parents' house?
私
I don't want
タクの
to
悲し
see
む
you
顔
suffer.
見たくない
Not again.
も
Stop.
う謎かけみ
Stop
たいな
with
こ
all
とは
the
やめてよ。
riddles. I was sick of it all. Was I supposed to just never understand what was going on around me? Or just keep playing dumb even if I wanted to? I couldn't keep playing dumb even if I wanted to. Everybody kept throwing mysteries in my face. I just wanted to remain ignorant.
実家に行っちゃいけない
If
理
there's a
由があ
reason
る
why
な
I
ら
can't
言
go
っ
back
て
to my
よ。
parents' house, then tell me.
こんな中途半
I'm
端な
sick
の
of all
うんざり
this
なんだ。
half knowing. Sick of it? I was the one who'd always decided to do things halfway, wasn't I? I was the one who'd run away from things. That's right. I should just keep on doing what I've always been doing. I should just go home. Nimi was right. I didn't need to see Nanami. And I went to see her and she was missing her right hand. What was I even supposed to do about it? It'd be my fault, wouldn't it? Nanami would hate me. She'd despise me. I'd be the loser who couldn't save his little sister. I know for sure just how pathetic I was. If I kept everything vague and uncertain, I wouldn't feel guilty. Yeah, I should just do that. That was the best move. Don't look at anything. No matter how many mysteries people shoved in my face, I could just ignore them all. I could have myself away from the whole world.
ほんと世話が
You
焼けるな
really are a handful.
ナナがいないと
You can't do
何もでき
anything
ないの
without
か
me,
な
you know?
ダメだ
No. In my head, I heard Nanami's bright, cheerful voice.
ダメだよ
No. If I ran away here, I'd never be able to face Nanami again. I'd never be able to come here again.
タク
Taku. I clenched my fist and stepped onto the narrow street that led to my old home. It was less than 50 meters away. At first, my pace was brisk. Then I ran, and I headed toward the home where I'd grown up. 30 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters, 0 meters. And the house I knew so well. Wasn't there.
あれ
Huh? The name on the plate was different. It didn't say Nishijo. The house looked different too. It was much nicer, much newer than the house I'd lived in. I looked around. I thought maybe I just stopped at the wrong house. But I was wrong. And besides that, nothing around me matched what I remembered. I thought for a moment that maybe I had gotten lost or gone down the wrong street, but that was impossible. Everything on the way had been just as I remembered it. The path here was the same, but my home wasn't here. I followed up the path of my memories, but what I remembered being here wasn't here at all. Instead, it was something else. I was seeing something new. I should know this place well, but it was like I was coming here for the first time.
シャメビューだ
To my view.
違うよ
No. Rumi was standing right behind me. Her words were an instant rejection.
この世界に
There's nowhere in this world.
タクの帰る場所
For
は
you to go home to.
ないの
The light from the setting sun fell into the dark hospital hallway. This time of day was particularly dark. It was just before night fell, and the lights hadn't been turned on yet. The chaos and noise of dinner time had subsided, and an almost eerie silence descended in its place. Shogun was slowly moving down the hallway in his wheelchair. The sound of the creaking wheels echoed throughout the corridor. He passed several nurses on the way, but none of them looked at him or spoke. Shogun, for his part, didn't seem to find this unusual at all. Brown hands, seemingly made of nothing but skin and bones, turned the wheels again and again.
網じゃ
Ami! As he passed one of the rooms, a patient named Yamai began to scream. He pointed at Shogun, shouting frantically,
網ちゃんだ
"It's Ami!" There happened to be a nurse in his room. She looked terribly confused.
ほら
Look,
網ちゃんが
Ami's
帰って
back.
きたよ
She was going
また
outside
お外に
again.
出かけて
That's
たんだ
against the
いけ
rules.
ないんだ
誰もいませんよ
There's nobody there, okay? The nurse looked around and chuckled. Shogun was right in front of her with his wheelchair. But still, she said nobody was there.
また山井さんは
You're teasing
私の
me
こと
again,
からかって
aren't
るん
you,
でしょ
Mr. Yamai?
でも
But you
今日
won't
は
get
騙
me
されま
this
せんから
time.
ね
網ちゃん
Nami!
ラウミーちゃん
Nami!
タオミちゃん
Nami! Yamai kept screaming, getting angrier and angrier. Shogun ignored him and continued down the hallway, turning right. The cream-colored wall suddenly became black. Shogun didn't hesitate for even a moment before the wall. He kept going forward, and just before it seemed like he would hit it, the wall vanished. It simply disappeared and revealed the hallway behind it. Shogun kept going forward. The hallway went on for about 20 more meters before ending, this time for real. There was a single door, which opened into a room. Shogun opened the door and went inside. It was a room that didn't exist, the one where there'd been rumors and ghost stories about in the hospital for years. And the name on the plate outside the door was Takumi Nishijo. Giglomaniac is the next chapter. That's a fun note to end on. I love that. Heck indeed, heck indeed. Well, what do you guys think? Got any thoughts to share with the class? Ah, indeed. I agree with that one. That's a very valid thought. Just, you know, felt. But yeah, that was... Yeah, that was something. Usual for Chaos Head, I suppose. Every time you think you're piecing things together, the game slaps down even more pieces to try to figure out. I get the feeling that we're going to have to get more than one ending to fully understand what's going on. So, like, even though we're rapidly approaching the first, like, regular ending, I don't think we're gonna fully understand what's up, you know? You have a sneaking suspicion that the endings in Chaos Head will have more in common with the Nier Automata endings than most visual novels. I'm not familiar with Nier Automata endings, so I can't really speak on that. But, yeah, until next time, I'll catch y'all guys later. Bye-bye!